Today we're talking about Megalopolis. This is a big movie, so of course it necessitates a big podcast. So as always, I have Daniel here with me. Hello, say hello.
Hello.
Hello, Daniel. I'm Gil, by the way, the voice and face of OneTake. And like I said, big podcast for a big movie, so I reached into the multiverse, into another dimension, and pulled on Tony from Hack the Movies.
Hi!
Thank you for coming. This is just as exciting as No Way Home when Andrew Garfield showed up.
Real quick, guys. Megalopolis? More like mega kind of a messipus.
That was fantastic. I'm so glad we brought you on. It was nice to see you. Hope you come on again sometime.
That was very clever what I did. It was funny because he thought I was going to say Megalopolis, but I changed the name. If only there was like a different word I could have used to make it shorter, but it was the only one I could think of.
I have absolutely no idea what you could even be referring to. So what we're going to do here today, I'm going to give a basic plot synopsis.
Okay.
Then we're going to go into overall thoughts, and then as always, we'll do a detailed recap and analysis.
Okay.
So first, just to ground everybody, here's what the movie's about. So the Roman Empire once fell, thanks, according to the movie, to the insatiable appetite for power of a few men. This movie asks, are we doomed to repeat those mistakes? It's set in the fictional city of New Rome, which is based on New York. The mayor, Franklin Cicero, played by Giancarlo Esposito, he likes the status quo, while Caesar Catalina, played by Adam Driver, has a vision for a brighter future. He's invented something called megalon, a substance with almost magical properties. He would like to build a utopia using megalon, with buildings that can grow, kind of like plants. He calls this city Megalopolis. Will Caesar succeed, or will the mayor and the others thirst for power in the status quo, doom humanity to repeat the mistakes of their ancient ancestors? Now, Daniel, you have been, I don't even really know why exactly, but so excited to talk about this movie. You keep asking, when are we going to record? So I have to know, just give me your overall thoughts. What do you think of this?
Megalopolis, more like, I got nothing. Look, I love this movie. I loved it. I've seen it 3 times now.
Wait,
and I've enjoyed it. Okay. I loved it. I really enjoyed this. Okay, first of all, love ancient Rome. I've loved ancient Rome since before it was cool to like ancient Rome. Which
How
I guess
often
isn't
do you
true
think about
because
the Roman Empire?
constantly. Constantly.
I don't know if he knows the meme, Tony.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
No, I do know the meme, and that's what I mean, is that I've liked this since before the meme. I love ancient Rome. I love a Roman epic. And I loved everything this movie was trying to do. I disagree with like certain parts of the movie's message, but that's kind of the point, is he's trying to get us to ask the right questions. But ultimately, the thing I like the most is that this is a deeply positive and optimistic movie. It's almost cheesy at times, but I like that, is it's cool to be cynical and nihilistic these days. And you could see it in a lot of the criticisms of this movie, is the critics wanted it to be cynical and say, oh, look how horrible our world is. But he doesn't want to do that. He says, no, let's look towards the future. Humanity is great. Humanity can do anything. And to me, I loved that message. And then the last thing is just what a unique movie. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It was like, I was giddy the first time seeing it, every scene. I was giddy. Like, it was just so fun and new. And so that's why I loved it.
Wow, Tony, so I was going to ask you, and Dan, I'll respond to that momentarily, but I want to hear from Tony first. I was going to pull up a picture because I saw you tweeted a picture of yourself before you started watching. I was going to say, This is you before Megalopolis. I want to know what face you were making after Megalopolis.
Well, look. I loved it for different reasons. I love big budget, overly ambitious vanity pieces that are kind of disasters. So when I heard what this was, I'm like, wait, he's been writing this for 40 years? And oh boy, does it show that he's been writing it for 40 years, because it kind of gets lost in the weeds here and there, and then it remembers what the plot is and it circles back to it. Also, it forgets the whole New Rome stuff at parts, and it'll just be New York again, like he forgot. Anyway, this was an experience. This was a fun experience. And again, I kind of agree with everything you're saying. I'm like, I appreciate what he was trying to do and what he was trying to say, but holy shit, this was, for every like really good moment and good section, there's like 10 minutes of just nonsense. And I was just captivated the whole time. I had to see it in IMAX. They played one screening at 10 at night. That was the only IMAX screening near me. That's like 2 days after it came out. They gave up on that movie pretty quick. Yeah, it's just a big clusterfuck. But an interesting one. It's not bad. It's not like a Michael Bay Transformers where there's too much going on, you get confused. Like, this is kind of like, oh wow, I kind of like this, but this is also very stupid. Yeah, it's just a mixed bag. Is the best thing you can say.
In terms of it being something he's been writing for 40 years, I feel like that partly manifests in that probably for the last few decades, every once in a while he thinks of something and he's like, oh, that's got to go in here. And he's like, I'll figure out how to like integrate it into the plot later, but let me just throw it on there. But he never did the part of like integrating it.
Yeah, there are moments where you can actually pinpoint when he started writing stuff, like the "Make Rome Great Again" signs. I'm like, well, I have an idea what year he wrote that scene.
I just can't figure out what he's alluding to there. Like, I look at the messaging, I'm like, it's a little muddy to me.
You know what, Gil? We don't.
He actually, that was it was like a proposed campaign slogan. I think in like the '80s for Reagan or something.
Yeah, I think maybe Reagan actually had it. Yeah,
that's probably what it's about.
The first time around.
It's definitely about Reagan. Which, of course, was the other great film of the year. Megalopolis and Reagan. We're all in agreement that those are the best films of the year. But anyway, keep going. What did you think, Gil?
Yeah, I agree with all the above. So let's get into it. No, I'm just kidding. I do agree with what a lot of both you said. Daniel, I agree with everything you said, but I do feel like you're dancing around a little bit the actual movie itself. So I love the messaging. It's like, okay, I agree with that. It's a positive message. I love that it's trying different things. I agree with that. But how effective are those things? And before I even get to that, I want to see if you guys can relate. Daniel, I think you might relate to this. Tony, I'm not sure yet. We'll see. But I'm seeing all of these titles and thumbnails. Megacrapolis is one I saw from a friend of ours. And all these just headlines of just, what the hell did I just watch? And I have this instinct to defend the movie. Even before I saw it, I just want to be like, it just doesn't feel right to just write the movie off completely. Because even before seeing it, I know it's an ambitious movie. I know it's an experimental movie. Yeah. And don't we all want to rage against the Hollywood system? And it kind of feels like the attitude is, they told you no, Francis Ford Coppola, so give up. And then when he went and made it himself, it feels like we're all rooting against it. Now, to be fair, I see all these headlines. I don't click on any of them. Yeah. And every once in a while, when I stroll into one of these articles and read it, I'm like, well, this is a fairly nuanced take. It's like a sensational headline, but a lot of people are saying there's some interesting stuff in here. It doesn't exactly all hold together. And I was like, all right, that's very fair. But just pointing out, for some reason, I have a bias in favor of this movie going into it. And I think after actually seeing it, I don't think it's a very good movie. I like the message. I don't think it achieves what it sets out to, because it's trying to send a very one criticism I've seen a few times is the movie's trying to say something. I have no idea what. And I find that ridiculous because you have characters that just explicitly spell it out multiple times in the movie. But that's a criticism that we've seen a few times. Like with Joker, people will criticize it with this like feigned ignorance of, I don't know what the movie's trying to say. And you can criticize the movie for failing to say it, but what is it trying to say? In both cases, it's pretty obvious. But if you want to tell people something, you can simply just say it. Francis Ford Coppola has spelled out the movie's message and said it explicitly in different interviews. But why do you put it in a movie? It's because you want to emotionally move people so they feel it, because that's what's going to change people's minds. And if you want people to start talking about the future, which is one of the things this movie's trying to achieve, then, and we're going to go into spoilers on everything. I'm going to start spoiling stuff now. But when Adam Driver is giving this impassioned speech at the end of the movie, people in the theater shouldn't be laughing. Like, they should be moved by it, and it should inspire them. But I don't think that happens, and I don't blame the audience for that. I think there's reasons that the narrative of this movie doesn't hold up. It never gets you to the emotional highs it would need to get you to for any of the stuff to actually land. And I think we'll get into the details of all that. I think part of it is because you do sort of lose track of the narrative. Like, he's building Megalopolis. At any point in the movie, if you were to stop and ask me, like, how far has he progressed on that? I'd be like, I have no idea. What's stopping him from progressing further? Like, the mayor's a jerk. But, like, what is he explicitly doing? What are the obstacles in his path? I don't know. Wow Platinum, Aubrey Plaza's character. She is intent on ruining things and taking power. Where is she in her plan? She's kind of just on the sidelines. She marries Hamilton, and then the movie's like, well, we got to end the movie. We need something to happen. Then she strolls back into the plot, and you start to move into the end game. There's the Soviet satellite.
Oh, right, the satellite.
Yeah, which
I forgot all about.
It doesn't not play a role. It's actually an important part of the plot.
Yes,
but it's somehow, this is how I felt. I feel far away from the plot. Like, it's there, I can see it, but it's in the distance, and it takes real work to, like, figure out what's going on. If you take a step back and look at the movie as a whole, it's easy to figure out the overarching plot, but it's like moment to moment, you just start to lose track of it. And then last thing I'll mention is just one of the criticisms this movie's gotten a lot is the acting. And the actors are very much hamming it up, like they're on a stage. There was apparently a lot of improv on the set where they would just try different things, like the whole rope sequence where Julia and Caesar are, like, pulling on an invisible tug-of-war rope. That was something they came up with on the day of the set. So I feel like there's two things happening at the same time. On the one hand, vanity project, yes. But it doesn't feel like it was Francis Ford Coppola, like iron grip, auteur style, trying to make everything go his way. It seems like it was the opposite. People were just messing around, having fun, trying different things.
Maybe a little
and I
too
don't know
much
that
fun,
that helped
yes.
the movie. Yeah.
I think I agree generally with the criticisms of the plot. Definitely. I did not like the criticisms of the acting, though. I think within the context of what this movie was doing, I thought the acting style made sense. Like, I like that it felt theatrical, because I think it was a theatrical kind of movie. And you know how it's like a Roman epic, right? Like, you kind of want this old school feel to the acting as well. There were also, and we'll talk about some of these specific scenes, but a lot of the dialogue was like musical, which I also thought was like fun and unique and fit the style of the movie. And so I just don't think it's right to try to. One interviewer said, and Francis Ford Coppola liked it, is that they're acting in a different key in this movie, right? It's like you have to take in the context, right? It's like this is a certain kind of movie, and they did the right kind of acting for this movie.
Okay, I get what you're saying about the acting. It felt like very old Hollywood. The problem is not all the actors are doing that, so it becomes very inconsistent. Like, you have what's her face, the lady,
Julia.
What was her name?
The Adam Driver's love interest. Yeah,
Julia and like Adam Driver are kind of doing this like hamming up thing. Then you have Lawrence Fishburne, who's just like totally deadpan. Actually, a lot of like the young like ladies in the movie, they're hamming it up. And a lot of the guys aren't. So for a while, I'm just like, wow, he got a lot of terrible actresses in this movie. But I was like, oh, wait, no, that's like a stylistic choice. I'm like, why are they all not doing that? Aubrey Plaza's not really acting like that, really. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying with the acting. I just wish all of the actors were on the same level, because it just, before you like tune into it, it's just like, oh, that guy's a really good actor and that lady can't act for her life. That's what I felt in like the first like 30 minutes until I figured out what was going on.
Well, some of them are in a purely comedic, satirical tone.
Yeah.
And if I just ask myself, why am I not feeling what I think the movie wants me to feel, and I try to like reverse engineer it, like the whole love story, like it's because their conversations sound so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is the theatricality of it. I mean, one thing I'd be curious to see is apparently he commissioned, or Francis Ford Coppola commissioned a novelization and a graphic novel. And so I feel like reading those would be like this movie minus the improvisation and like the goofing around. And I mean, there's no hamming it up in a novel, right?
Yeah.
At least in terms of quote unquote acting. So I'd be curious to read that. That would be like a way to test this theory, because you can control the variables. Okay, turn off the acting and then just experience the story and see if I feel different.
But it's going to be written by a group of writers in a writing room improvising together.
It's a very experimental novel.
My one issue with like the plot is like the whole sci-fi element. I needed a little bit of explanation. How is he able to stop and control time? Is she also, like, she witnesses this when no one else can? And it seems like it's a secret that only he has. Maybe Lawrence Fishburne knows, but then, like, she can also do it, maybe? Or to, like, a less extent, she also has some kind of power. I'm like, where does this power come from? And then they mentioned Megalon, and I got excited. I'm like, oh, the big cockroach Godzilla fights. I didn't expect
Megatron's
to see him
in this?
Yeah, Jet Jaguar is going to come. This is going to be great any minute now. And I was like, oh, it's not that. It's a different Megalon. I was very upset about that. Funny enough, Megalon in that movie is from an underground utopia with like Roman looking dudes, and the guy's Emperor Antonio. So, you know, Megalopolis is a ripoff of Godzilla versus Megalon, is what I'm saying. So I'm like, all right, he found Megalon, and it's this Contra. I'm like, where did he get that from? How does it work exactly? If you're going to do sci-fi, you don't have to explain everything, but I'm like, I just need to know a little bit more. Because you guys are kind of glancing over this really big thing that controls the whole movie to make us watch Shia LaBeouf in a dress. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. We can do that. But what exactly is the Megalon? How does he learn to stop time? What is going on here?
So I have nothing on the Megalon, but on the stopping time, Coppola in all the interviews is so funny. He says, why is everyone so surprised he can control time? Artists do it all the time. I was dying at that.
Well, so actually the Megalon thing is funny because I guess he invented it, right? It's not like he discovered...
But he discovered a principle, right? Like, but that's how you invent anything, right? Is you discover something about nature.
And does he have the scientific rigor? He's an architect, right? He's not like a scientist.
Well, no, he's like everything. He mentions like he likes science, art, architecture. That's why he tells her to go back to the club.
But Daniel, you like science. Well, why haven't you invented Megalon?
Yeah.
Well, I think I need to drive my wife to driving erratically because of my mania. And then when she's in the water, somehow I will discover the principle.
Damn it.
Also, can you make a big cockroach with drill arms that can fight Godzilla?
Hey, while I'm at it, I might as well.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
We have a lot of requests for you. Tony and I both have very different dreams we're trying to live out.
We both want Megalon. We just can't decide on which Megalon we want.
And I just want to recreate the Roman Empire.
Well, I think Daniel,
that's the biggest. All right, yeah. Hold on. Sorry, Roman Empire.
Sure.
So in the beginning, I'm like, okay, this will be like if like the Roman Empire never like truly fell, and this is an alternate reality. I'm like, no, wait, this is in the future, and everything in history has happened. We hear about Frank Sinatra, Soviet War, and apparently New Rome was New York at one point. Because they flash back to September 11th stock footage and stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, wait, so this is in the future. And people in the future were like, yeah, let's try what the Italians did 3,000 years ago. Can't fuck up a second time. And I'm not there to warn them. Like, no, don't listen to the Italians. Do something different. Yeah, so I was a little confused. I'm like, why did we regress back to the Roman Empire? But they do make a point to say, like, the future is controlled by the past. But yeah, that whole the whole timeline of like the world building kind of fell apart for me. I'm like, are we in an alternate reality, or are we in the future where we decided we all love Rome again? What's going on here?
This movie's in a different key. You know, don't try to force your linear narrative thinking onto this movie. No, but like, I think you're just supposed to squint at those things, is like, look, it's modern day New York, it's modern day America, it's modern day New Rome. Like what, you know what I mean? Like you're just supposed to see it as modern day sort of futuristic world, but with like Roman costumes on it. It's like how I thought about it, right?
Yeah.
It's like
George Lucas
blend
said,
these things.
It's romantically true.
But like, it's still in America, and there is American things. And it's like, when did New York turn into New Rome? What happened here? I don't understand.
Yeah, I think Francis Ford Coppola could not be less interested in those details, is the feeling.
Then why just change the fucking script? God damn it.
I think he's purely interested in this like emotional truth, in this like deeper meaning. So if he's trying to say that we're like Rome, all right, call the city Rome. The time stopping thing, and that's an element that didn't really work for me. Also, for him, the time stopping is basically symbolic. I mean, it's literal; it's happening in the movie, but it's happening for a reason. I have a quote from him. Where is this here? Yeah, we've all had moments in our lives where we approach something you can call bliss. There are times when you have to leave, have work, whatever it is, and you just say, "Well, I don't care. I'm going to just stop time." I remember once actually thinking I would do that. So it's meant to be this moment of bliss, like when everything's coming together, I guess, and it feels like time has stopped. Why is Julia able to see him doing it? I think it's meant to be this connection between them. Like somehow it's another form of bliss. It's not an artistic bliss, but I've just formed a connection with this other human being. It's like a love at first sight sort of thing. But I think for a metaphor to work, you have to attach something emotional to it. So I should be feeling that bliss, or I should feel like, wow. And then you pair it with the time stop, and now it becomes a metaphor in a way that allows you to say a lot with just an image instead of explicitly, having a philosophical diatribe about love and art. You just capture it all in one image. But again, it just doesn't have, I didn't feel any of that anytime I saw the time stops, generally. Maybe a little bit when she's like, stop time for me.
When they're on the big like girders in the air, and I kept getting nervous that they were going to fall.
Yeah, same.
I do want to say, okay, so when you have a movie that's like fantastical and everything looks crazy, I couldn't tell like what was real and what was magical realism. I assume the statues that are like living and breathing and falling over, I assume those aren't real. That's just like symbolic or something.
Oh, you don't live in New York, so you haven't seen those.
Look, I don't go to New York a lot these days. Yeah, so I'm just like, okay, I get maybe this is like a symbolic of like Rome falling and how the character feels, but I'm like, but everything else in this world looks weird. So is that actually a real living statue that's walking around, or are they just imagining it? It took me out of it once in a while. I'm like, I don't know what is real and what isn't. What are they fantasizing and what is actually in this world? I don't know if any of that threw you guys off.
I think Coppola would say to that, if you're reading like a poem, for example, would you be like, wait a minute, did this actually happen? So, I mean, honestly, like, I think by the time you get to the falling statues, this movie has already readjusted my brain to like, I'm not questioning anything. I'm not questioning the mechanics of the time stop. I'm not wondering about the alternate history. I'm just taking everything as it is, honestly.
Well, another alternate history thing is that apparently Sony doesn't exist in this universe, but Sony spelled backwards does. And I noticed that when Shia LaBeouf was taking a picture on his camera, and it's totally not an image that they flipped and didn't bother to change the text on the camera at all. I saw that. I'm just like, what? I'm like, they couldn't fix you have all this CGI everywhere. You couldn't flip the logo. What the fuck, guys? I don't know if you guys
spot
the guy stand.
Did you spot the Starbucks coffee left on set also?
No, I didn't. Well, to be fair, like, it's an IMAX screen and it's a close up on the goddamn camera. I'm like, that's Sony backwards.
That's a Game of Thrones reference, right, Daniel?
I know it's a Game of Thrones reference.
Look, clearly I'm biased. I want to defend everything about this movie, and like that's okay. But I like the magical realism stuff did not bother me at all. Neither did the alternate history stuff. Like I liked the blending of sort of like real stuff, weird Roman stuff, but it's also New York. Like that all worked for me within the few minutes of watching the movie, where I was just like, oh, okay, like this is kind of what's going on in the movie. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it just made, to me, like it was fun and exciting just to see something different.
Well, let's go into the recap and see if this clears some stuff up.
Okay.
Tony, for you, I'll indicate at various points this actually happened. This is magical realism.
Okay.
Oh, well, we start with Lawrence Fishburne doing some voiceover, basically saying some of the stuff I said before. America is a lot like ancient Rome. Will we survive, or will we also fall victim to the insatiable appetite for power of a few men? The movie starts right with Caesar Catalina learning to stop time. He's kind of leaning over the edge of a building. It looks like he's going to fall, and then he says, "Time, stop." And he's able to sort of bring himself back up, and everything in the world stops. And that's when you get the title, Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, a fable. What does that mean, Daniel, a fable?
I don't know. What is a fable? It's like a timeless story?
It's a story with a specific message, basically. Yeah.
Gil, shall I give some of the historical context here, or you want it later?
Oh, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, so like I said, the main characters are named Cicero and Catalina, and there is an actual story from ancient Rome that is loosely adapted and retold in a somewhat modern or futuristic times. Daniel, you're a ancient Rome buff. Tell us about Cicero and Catalina.
Yeah, so let me lay the stage here, and then as we go through, I'll also, when there are more parallels, I'll bring them up. But there's a very famous conflict between Cicero and Catalina. It's known as the Cataline Conspiracy, an extremely famous event in ancient Rome around 65 BC. When I say this is famous, it is one of the best documented events in Roman history. There is an insane amount of writing about it. It's also been extremely influential throughout Roman culture. So in the rest of the history of Rome, like, they will refer to this conspiracy, and different people will have different interpretations of it. And even in the modern day, this is still very influential. You'll see in protests, people will have signs referencing lines from Cicero's speech. It is one of the most famous speeches of all time. Like the founders of America, and until, I don't know when, at some point the classics became less popular in America, but there was a long time where almost everybody knew like all of these speeches, like all of Cicero's speeches about this event. Okay, so what was the Cataline Conspiracy? Basically around this time, we're on the brink of the end of the Republic. So shortly after these events, we're going to have Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon, proclaims himself dictator for life, gets assassinated, and then eventually we have his nephew, I think, Augustus Caesar, ascend to the throne, and it is the end of the Republic. It's the beginning of the empire. The Cataline Conspiracy is a big indicator that this is about to happen. Because what happens is this guy Catalina, he comes from a very aristocratic, blue-blooded family, but he's been unsuccessful seeking office. And so he conspires with a huge number of people and the details on this are very unclear because different sides will say different things, but potentially to assassinate Cicero, the current consul of Rome, maybe kill a bunch of the senators, maybe burn down a lot of Rome, maybe tear down the whole system, right? The degree to which he was a revolutionary is unclear, but he was a major threat to the Republic, and Cicero stops him. Cicero gives a bunch of famous speeches. He reveals the conspiracy. He ends up executing a bunch of the people involved. And so, anyway, this conflict, there's going to be a lot of parallels throughout the movie between Cicero and Catalina. But I think some of the thematic points here are, like, Catalina's been portrayed as a villain historically. But there were also issues with the system and it needed to be reformed. And Cicero stood in the way of that, right? So you could look at Cicero as a hero, or you can look at him as a defender of the old system that was deeply corrupt and flawed.
And his name wasn't, like, Catalina's name wasn't Caesar.
No,
right?
No.
So do you think that he's in the movie, he's called Caesar Catalina to kind of turn him into an amalgamation of the two and just say, like, this person represents the end of the Republic? Because if you combine Catalina and that whole conspiracy and then it leads into Caesar, do you think that's what he's trying to do? Or he just likes the name Caesar.
Well, I think Francis Ford Coppola was originally going to go with the name Pasta Spaghetti Mario Luigi, and someone told him, like, hey, I don't think that's really going to fly. Let's try Caesar.
We know you're funning this yourself, but we have to draw the line somewhere. We're already in trouble after the Mario debacle.
I like how you went into that whole, like, big thing with Caesar, Catalina, and Cicero. You could have summed it up with just like, Italians are trying to screw each other over again. It's like tale as old as time. Tale as old as time. But yeah, all right, sorry. Where were we? We're right at the beginning of the movie.
Well, a lot of this stuff we've talked about, so we can move fast. But yeah, we basically get an introduction to high society. We see all kinds of lavish parties.
We see the
drugs.
club.
Exactly.
You got to do the head knob when you do it.
It was kind of like a head and hand movement. It was like oscillating.
I have to remix it with that song, like, you could find me in the club, but I want to, like, cut to him singing.
So go back to the club.
Well, we see drugs, partial nudity, Shia LaBeouf, all the stuff you see at a crazy
all
party.
terrible things. Yes, I agree, Gil.
He plays Claudio Pulcher, Caesar's cousin. And I don't know if you guys heard, there's a rumor he might be sleeping with his sister.
Yeah, they mention it a lot.
I mentioned it a few times. Saying you don't know the message of this movie is saying like you don't know that Claudio might be sleeping with his sister. Because both are repeated many times.
Well, he has 3 sisters, I think, and they're all sleeping with each other.
Yeah.
There you go.
And he hates his cousin. He hates him.
He's very jealous of Caesar. Because Caesar's unequivocally better than him, I'd say.
Yeah.
We also meet Julia Cicero, the mayor's daughter, and she quickly becomes a love interest for Caesar. But basically, on her way home, we alluded to this earlier, she sees Caesar overseeing some construction work and notices that as they're demolishing a building, he stops time or slows down time. And she's the only one who can see it. Like I said earlier, I think that's meant to be sort of a love at first sight metaphor. She's the only one invited into this special moment for him.
Also, our hero here, we're told, like, throughout the film that, like, people live in those buildings. He's just, like, kicking people out of their houses to blow up these buildings to make his weird plant city. And I'm like, I don't know, it makes him a little less sympathetic in my mind.
And he's blowing up the buildings with people still in them. Nobody talks about that in this movie.
No, he doesn't. I thought he just, like, kicks them out and then blows them up. Oh, okay. I was going to say, I'm like, I don't think he was blowing them up, but he was being shitty. I don't think he was that shitty.
You didn't hear, like, the death screams every time he knocked down a building?
He's like, yes, I will help humanity. Oh, my God.
He does really get let off the hook because, I mean, that's basically the whole purpose of the satellite later. It falls, takes out a huge chunk of the city, and then he takes that now empty, destroyed area and rebuilds it. But I guess if that didn't happen, he would have had to just keep knocking buildings down. He would have been a lot less popular.
He's like, thank God that satellite killed all those people. Now I can make my plant city. It's great.
But doesn't that feel like that's something he's been thinking about, Coppola, for the last 40 years, where he's like, how do I not make him a jerk? Like, for just forcing his vision on people.
Well,
and then finally one day he thought of the satellite and wrote that in.
We didn't go too much into the production history of this. They were getting ready to make this in like 2001. Like they were getting ready. And then September 11th happened. So I think, I don't know if it was a satellite at that point in the script. It might have been something else, but apparently, apparently there was something in the script was a little too similar to the attack. So they just put it on the back burner and that version died.
So at least 20 years into the writing process, he already had this idea.
Yes.
Well, Caesar wins the Nobel Prize for his invention of Megalon. So we talked a little bit about it earlier, but it can grow buildings. At one point they say when he's showing off the buildings you can make with it, they can expand as needed. You have kids, your house gets bigger. We also see that it can be used for healing. It's kind of, Tony, I conceptualized it as the non-evil version of the black goo from Prometheus. Oh, Daniel, you would get that reference too.
Yes.
We get more narration.
By the way, sorry, different movie. When that fucking CGI robot mentioned the black goo and Alien Romulus, I wanted to get out of the theater. Anyway, keep going.
Well, we get some more narration from Lawrence Fishburne. He basically says an empire does not die in one instant. It begins to die when people no longer believe in it. It's around this time we find out that Fishburne plays Caesar's driver and assistant. Why is he the narrator of the movie?
I also love that he refers to himself as a historian.
Yeah. I guess
it's
because he's there to observe everything, right?
Yeah. By the way,
He's
I
got
love
a great
that,
voice.
By the way, the driving scenes are like clearly like with rear projection and stuff. One of my favorite Coppola films is Bram Stoker's Dracula, and how everything was like in camera and practical. So it was weird seeing the movie go from like super CGI stuff and then stuff like that. There was a bit of a clash, but I like respected that kind of filmmaking. And also, sorry, a point about the filmmaking. It was nice to see like actual sets. Yeah, there was like CGI extensions and stuff, but like that whole part where they're like on the scaffolding looking at the model city, I'm like, that's actually a really cool set. I feel like we don't get stuff like this in movies anymore.
So was the whole like city in the background, was that digital, or was that like classic painting to use as the backdrop?
Some of it felt like a painting. Some of it did. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. The look of the film was really, really nice. But anyway.
Yeah, like I said, I think he's narrating like you said, is because he's basically observing everything and thinks of himself as a historian. And then on top of that, I think Francis Ford Coppola really likes his voice. So let's let him narrate.
He's got a good voice.
So there's a press conference where the mayor announces what they'll do with the recently demolished site that Caesar demolished. They're going to build a casino. Then Caesar shows up, starts quoting Shakespeare. I will say, we're talking about characters kind of hamming up their performance. I feel like he's one where it really makes sense because everybody looks at him as an eccentric person. So for him to spontaneously start quoting Hamlet, you buy it from him. And he does the whole to be or not to be speech. And I think, Daniel, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but to be or not to be, on a basic level, you're saying to live or not, to live and endure, or just give up and die. But I think he's referring to the whole of society. He recognizes we're collapsing like Rome. If we follow Cicero's way and build a casino, that would be just giving up and leaving the status quo. Or we could live and fight back by following his way, by building Megalopolis, using Megalon.
It's the only way to do it, I think.
I think
Also,
it's obvious.
You're forgetting to mention that this whole time, Aubrey Plaza is just yelling at people.
Right, so Aubrey Plaza, who is named, I thought her show, so she's like a TV talk show news anchor host. I figured the show was called like Wow Platinum, but that's her name. Her name is Mrs. Wow, Miss Wow Platinum.
The show is called Money Bunny. That sounds like
a
James Bond like lady or something. Actually, both names sound like James Bond characters.
That's true.
So I thought this scene did such a great job though of like pulling you into this world, right? So you get this whole, well, first of all, we have the intro scene with the party, like the drugs, the sexuality in the club, like all this stuff. You get the whole feeling of this very hedonistic culture, which sort of Rome was like at that time. And some could argue our culture is like now. And it's sort of, there's this idea that, there's that weakness and that hedonism, and that leads to the end of a great civilization. So you get pulled into that world quickly. You have this vibe of sort of like rampant consumerism. So we have, Caesar says this, there's always time to convince them to use money they don't have, to buy things they don't need, to imitate people they don't like. And then we also have Wow Platinum like turning this whole thing into a show. And she ends with like a jingle and blowing a kiss, right? You get this whole like media and all these people working together to make this consumerist hedonistic culture where everything's sort of pre-packaged for you. Like I thought that all worked.
And Francis Ford Coppola, he wants us to start having serious discussions about the future. And it's like, here's Adam Driver trying to do that. And Aubrey Plaza is just trying to distract everybody. And even when it comes to Caesar and reporting on him, she's sort of like, she just wants his attention. Like, oh, you wouldn't give me a comment, because she's trying to,
she mentions it in front of everyone. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's like, that's all you're worried about right now. You also get one of my favorite lines. I loved Dustin Hoffman in this movie. He's not in it a whole lot.
I kept forgetting he was in it, to be honest. He shows up like toward the end. I'm like, oh, right. Dustin Hoffman's in this.
It's like, oh, Dustin Hoffman's in this movie? And you say that like 3 or 4 more times, because by the time he shows up again, you forget. But when Caesar says he wants to make a city out of Megalon, Dustin Hoffman is like, Megalon is unsafe. Concrete, 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 and steel is safe. Like, I don't understand the delivery of those lines.
Wait.
But
You're
it's
just
so
reminding
good.
me. What was the audio like in your theater? I had trouble hearing the main characters talk sometimes. Like, and this scene just reminded me. It felt like all the main characters that I'm supposed to hear, their volume was super low and all the background noise just drowned them out. But like for the entire film, I had trouble hearing some of the characters. Was that my theater sucks? Or was that like a thing across the board? You, who have seen the movie 3 times, it's your favorite movie of all time. Did you experience this?
To some extent, there are some lines that I'm recapping the second half of this movie. There are some lines that were like important, and I still can't tell what they said.
Yeah, I'm just, the sound mixing was just bizarre, and I thought maybe my speakers in the theater were fucked up, but I'm like, why can't I hear them? Why can't I hear anyone? Why am I hearing like the background chatter like louder than the person I'm supposed to focus on? Sorry, that scene just like gave me that memory. I'm like, oh yeah, the audio mix was pretty bad. But anyway.
Yeah, because I didn't hear that whole thing about concrete and steel. That sounds great.
No, I heard it, but I'm just like, what is it? Concrete? Okay, concrete.
Why? That's why he said it 3 times. It was to make sure it got through. Wait, Tony, did you see the Ultimate Experience or just the regular old IMAX screening?
Just regular old IMAX. I didn't have a guy come out and talk on a microphone. But I think I know that scene because then for some reason Adam Driver got like, it's a big IMAX screen, but then suddenly the screen shrinks just for that moment, I think. So no, I didn't do the Ultimate Experience.
Gotcha.
Did you guys?
Oh yeah, we got the real. Yeah, it is funny. The screening is labeled the Ultimate Experience, and the one difference is that at one point in the movie, the theater lights turn on. A guy walks down with a microphone and asks Caesar a question, and then Caesar replies.
And by the way, that question being asked is just pre-recorded. The guy's just standing there. That's all he's doing.
The idea, apparently there was an idea to have like Adam Driver say like a bunch of like things that could play, but then that got like scrapped. So what was the point of doing it?
Francis Ford Coppola wrote a whole book back in 2017. It was called Live Cinema and Its Techniques, and a lot of it is about his theory of where cinema can go in the future. And he apparently loves the idea of live performances streamed into movie theaters. Like, he imagines in the future some hybrid of theater performance and film and combining the two somehow. So I mean, I think that the point of that scene is literally, it's like 90% just to try out the idea and inspire people. Like, look, you can be creative and incorporate live elements. If I were to read into it further, it's kind of like at that point, Caesar is breaking the fourth wall and he's once again spelling out the message of the movie. But Francis Ford Coppola wants us to feel like he is talking to us. And it's the ultimate fourth wall break to actually have a guy walk out and talk to him. So I guess it slightly furthers the feeling that he's talking to us.
Real quick, is the guy like dressed up like a goofy Roman dude, or is he just like a guy?
I remember him looking kind of like an usher, like just it was just a guy at the theater, right, Daniel?
I think so.
Was it like, I hope it was like a comedian who just like ad-libbed, went off script. That'd be fun.
Well, like Daniel said, apparently, I mean, his back is to you, so I couldn't see his lips moving. But I've seen people say that asking the question is pre-recorded. So the guy just stands up, holds a mic to his mouth, and then they play the recording.
They should do this for all movies. The next Spider-Man movie, before like a big fight, the theater should like stop. Someone should go down and just go, "It's Spider-Man," and then the movie just resumes. I think that'll be great.
Audience participation. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
On the point though of trying new techniques, in this scene we just discussed, the one with the press conference and stuff, there was another that Dustin Hoffman line, concrete, it was almost musical. And then right after that, the camera goes over Hamilton Crassus and you hear dollar signs. Like, these weird sound effects and the musicality in this scene, I thought was really cool. And throughout the movie.
I'm surprised it wasn't a musical. It started to feel like a musical at times. I know there is one song in it, but I'm just like, this could have just been a full-on musical. Why not? Why not just make it even worse? Just go feel musical. It'll be great.
I was gonna say because that worked out so well for Joker 2, and then I realized that movie's not out yet. But
You're pre bashing it.
I have a feeling I know which way it's gonna go, but we'll see.
I'm not even that hot on Joker 1, to be honest. I'm even less excited for Joker 2.
Well, you have the mayor and you have Caesar arguing publicly, and this is probably the first time that the whole theme and messaging of the movie is laid bare. Because the mayor is arguing, we need to worry about people today. And Caesar says, we have to make time to discuss the future. Civilization is a misguided branch that grew out of the tree of humanity. And we cut to a sketch in his notebook where you see a tree labeled Homo sapien, and then a branch labeled civilization, and it branches off into smaller branches of war, cruelty, inequality, poverty, and slavery. So
those are the only ones, apparently. I thought there was more to humanity, but okay.
If you had any other issues that you think are going to bring down society, you're wrong. It's those ones.
Okay.
It doesn't have like consumerism, like rampant consumerism. I would add that to the list. Yeah, and that whole thing about, Caesar accusing the mayor, you convince people to spend money on things they don't need. That's one of the things Coppola is saying in a lot of interviews, that we are kept feeling, if a lot of people are selling things to make you happy, they can only sell it to you if you're unhappy. So Tony, if you ever wonder why you wake up in the middle of the night staring into the abyss, wondering where you went wrong, what do I need to buy to fill this void? That's them. That's them keeping you down.
And what you need to buy is a OneTake membership or Patreon subscription.
That's what I need. That's the only thing that will cure me, is the OneTake membership or Patreon pledge.
We also have shirts for sale.
Yeah, I like Francis Ford Coppola shitting on capitalism, like consumerism. It's like, motherfucker, there's like Godfather sneakers. Shut up.
Well, and he sells wine. Why do you think people drink? It's not because they're already happy.
Man, I got a video coming out on the Bram Stoker's Dracula Sega CD game. I played that as a kid. That fucking sucked. Shut up, Coppola. You're responsible.
I'm not saying that everyone who drinks wine is I drink the occasional glass of wine. It can be a supplement to a good life.
Coppola's friends with George Lucas. Like, come on. You love consumerism.
Wait, what has he done that's capitalistic?
Just fucking merchandised everything.
Well, and he sold Star Wars for $4 billion.
Star Wars $4 billion. You think Coppola's jealous?
After this, maybe. He's like, Megalopolis will be my Star Wars. The Megalopolis cinematic universe.
It's got superheroes. The first one can stop time.
Yeah.
He said that he hopes his legacy... Somebody asked him, what do you want your legacy to be? He had a very specific answer. He said he doesn't think it's going to happen, so he's not crazy. But he said the way people have traditions of watching different movies, like this is a Christmas movie, this is the one you watch every Thanksgiving. He wants Megalopolis to be the movie people watch every New Year. And instead of having New Year's resolutions, he wants people to talk about society. Is this what we want it to be? Is this the only way society can be? Could we imagine something better? He wants people to have that conversation every New Year's. I think we should do that. December 31st.
I was just about to say, we should all get together for New Year's and watch Megalopolis.
Let's
when
do it.
should we time it for the ball dropping? What scene would be a good ball dropping scene? When the satellite hits the city? That might be a little depressing.
Well,
maybe
you
the
time
boner.
it right before. Oh, perfect. I like it. That was probably the most crowd-pleasing moment in the movie.
Wait, the Shia LaBeouf Aubrey Plaza sex scene. That's when we'll time it with the ball dropping.
Auntie, wow. 3, 2.
3, 2, 1. Does my ass look good in this dress? Yeah, happy New Year.
All right, that's the OneTake Hack the Movies watch party
We're
every
doing
year.
We're doing it.
And then we'll talk about society. If anyone's going to
solve
solve
it myself,
it's a branch. It's a misguided branch that grew off the tree of Homo sapiens. If anybody can solve this, it's the three of us, I think.
What are you talking about trees for, Gil? We got to talk about real things. We're not here to talk about trees.
Man, Caesar was the one talking about the trees.
Yeah, but that's how Cicero responds. Cicero goes, "What are you talking about trees for?"
Well, we should
Cicero,
mention it.
Yeah, Cicero hates Caesar.
That's true.
From when he was a DA, but I don't know if we're at that yet. Sorry.
Well, yeah, we can mention that. So the mayor was a DA, and we don't know the details of it yet, but Caesar's wife died, and the DA, the mayor charged him with the crime and accused Caesar of killing his own wife.
So parallel here is that Catalina was also accused of murdering his wife. I think also accused of like murdering his son or something. Like you name a bad thing, he was accused of doing it. And he also was accused of sleeping with the Vestal Virgin.
Huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they were one note with their smear campaign. It's like, he killed his wife. Like, he's still popular. What should we do? He killed his son. It's like, he didn't have a son.
They were trying, but yeah, then the Virgin thing. But that comes from what you call Shia LaBeouf trying to screw him over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So we should mention a couple other people who are at this gathering. There's a Hamilton Crassus III, John Voight's character, and Caesar's uncle. He owns a bank, richest man in the world, and he is very supportive of Caesar. And then, of course, you have John Voight's son, Claudio, Shia LaBeouf. He wants to be his heir, but he's basically a lazy degenerate. And we already mentioned, wow, platinum.
Yeah.
And so historically, Crassus was the richest man in Rome, and we don't really know what happened, but supposedly he might have been helping Cataline behind the scenes.
Gotcha. I mean, we don't have to dwell on this scene too much longer, but just I would just mention, so yeah, you do see some of the overacting here, and I think you especially, I feel like, see it from, or earlier I said that some characters feel like they belong in a purely comedic satire. And I think specifically John Voight, Aubrey Plaza, and Shia LaBeouf. Like, if you were to slice them out into a different movie, it would only be a comedy. I mean, I do think he's trying to be satirical on certain topics, like people who are vying for power without actually contributing anything to society, like Shia LaBeouf and Aubrey Plaza in this movie. So he wants to make them look ridiculous.
Yeah.
I also think to some extent, I wonder if maybe not just Coppola, but other people working on the movie, some of the actors, were afraid of how pretentious this movie is going to come off. And when you have somebody walking in as if I have all the answers for the future of society and I'm going to say them all to you, I feel like there's something uncomfortable about that. Yeah. So let's try
and then there's quoting Shakespeare, which is also pretty pretentious. There's a lot of pretentious stuff in this.
Right. So it's like, let's crack a smile, have a little bit of fun with it.
I actually don't mind that. Like, okay, let's look. We're not those arty weirdos. A little bit, but not fully.
Yeah, exactly. You also have, like, to some extent, the characters will come off as kind of one-dimensional. Like Caesar, we should do good things. The mayor, no, we should do bad things. And I think it's part of that trying to exaggerate, and you're trying to satirize this mayor and show how ridiculous he looks. Because if you try to follow his logic of why do we need to build this casino, why can't we even consider using Megalon to build a bigger city? I don't think this movie goes into his character much to tell you why, other than he's afraid of change. But I think we're meant to sort of fill in the blanks. And the mayor looks ridiculous. Good. Look at real politicians, and now hopefully you will see them as ridiculous as well.
And I was a little confused with Aubrey Plaza's whole character arc and stuff, because that first big scene with her and Adam Driver, she's wearing a sheer top, and I kept trying to look at her nips the whole time, and I wasn't paying attention to what she was saying. Because I'm like, oh, we're going to see some boob? And I'm like, no, you keep cutting away. Are we seeing the boob or not? What's going on? And then the scene was done, and I'm like, what the fuck did they talk about? I wasn't paying attention to a whole thing. I don't know if you guys you saw the movie 3 times, I assume, because the first time you also had the same struggle I did, and you had to go back again.
Well, now I know why so many people looked confused in that scene. Like, what's going on? What?
It's like, oh, we see her butt for a second, but then and it cuts away, and then she's looking at what's his face on TV, and I'm like, what happened here? So she does seem like she's in it for herself, but then also she legitimately loves Adam Driver and wants to give him everything.
Yeah, that's
because there's a moment where she has everything, but she's still willing to give him everything.
Yeah, you're right. So she is basically Caesar comes home to Aubrey Plaza. We know he recently lost his wife, but he's been in a relationship with Wow Platinum. And she tells him that she loves her, that she loves him, But I think he gets the feeling she was really just there for the money and power because she knows that he is on his way up. I think as soon as he gets that feeling, he walks out on her, it's over. And then she looks at the TV and sees his rich uncle, Hamilton, sets her sights on him. It's a good point, though, because she marries him, and now she's in this, but later she kind of bails on that and tries to go back to Caesar.
No.
And I think she's just insatiable, right? Is first of all, she doesn't really have control of the bank at that point, right?
Yeah.
So she still feels like she's still not fully secure in her position. She wants more power, but I think she wants everything. Like, she wants the bank, and she wants to be married to, like, the most powerful, most popular guy in Rome. Like, she just wants everything.
Well, and she specifically says to Caesar, I want to be part of a power couple. And he's like, which part? And when she's married to Hamilton, it's not a power couple. Like, she is essentially a trophy wife at that point. And I think she wants more genuine power in the relationship. So she goes to Caesar to try and come back to him. When that doesn't work, that's when she goes full on, I'm going to try and take the bank away from Hamilton.
Yeah.
And she comes up with a whole plan.
Which I still don't follow, but we'll try to go through it later.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
Julia visits Caesar at work. It seems like she's intrigued by the fact, for some reason, she finds it intriguing that he can stop time or something.
For some reason, I think that would be the most amazing thing in the world. And if I wasn't affected by it, I'd want to be friends with the person who can stop time.
She's like, how do you do that? Like, how does that work exactly? He's like, shut up. It's not what this movie's about. It's a metaphor. She's going on about how she quit medical school. Why? It's because, I guess you could say my love of science bumped up against a brick wall of intellectual vigor on the subject of jellyfish. Makes sense.
And she had to do drugs.
That's right, yeah. And as she says that, she smacks one of Caesar's decorations and it spins around. And she acts like surprised, like she tries to steady it. I'm like, well, what do you think would happen? You smacked it for no reason. The only reason I pointed out is because, people will say that in this movie, nobody talks or acts like a person. I think this scene is a great example of that.
Yeah.
And, so there's an improvisational version of this scene where the actors, when she hit it and spins around, she goes like, oh no. And then Adam Driver's like, what did you expect? Why'd you hit that? You don't go around hitting somebody's personal. It just turns into a Seinfeld scene of them bickering with each other about, like, when are you allowed to touch things in somebody's office? When can't you?
She's a decoration slapper. A decoration slapper. The bottom line of the scene, she wants to work as a go-between between Caesar and her father, because obviously they don't get along. But if Caesar's going to try and build this megalopolis, of course he's going to have to deal with the mayor. But Caesar only thinks about people, he only works with people who think about stuff. He admits that he comes off as cruel and uncaring, like he doesn't care about people, because he doesn't even care about himself. He only cares about the future. So, Tony, what does he tell her?
He tells her to go back to the club.
Even better than Adam Driver delivered it. He tells her to leave, but when she reveals that she saw him stop time, now he's intrigued, and he invites her to follow him. And one of my favorite moments of the movie. What's that?
I was going to say, to his crack team of just kids skateboarding in front of a little model of the city.
Yeah, at no point does their planning for Megalopolis look like planning for anything. I don't know what they're doing in that room.
It's so funny. At one point, like, somebody's just standing in a weird way and they're like carrying her and they're like, maintain the structure.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
That I can't know this, but that feels like the actors were screwing around. It's been a long day. No one's thinking quite straight. And they're like, what if we carry her across the room? Let's just see how that works.
And yet somehow this is like hard work. Like, they're really hard at work.
That's another reason I want to read the novelization. I want to see the non-improv version of this movie.
Yeah, that'd be fun to see.
My favorite part of the movie, Lawrence Fishburne's narrating again. And he's like, this is the daughter of Caesar's rival Cicero standing here. And then it cuts to him in real life. He goes, and yet, I like her. So it goes from narration to him, like, responding to himself.
So he's just narrating, like, as it's all happening. He's not even looking back. He's just thinking this the whole time.
So that got a laugh in our theater. So he brings her to a kind of crude model of Megalopolis. And she walks around on the model. He tells her to close her eyes. and she sees the future. She actually sees people. She sees Megalopolis.
And the CGI here is terrible. He apparently like fired the first visual effects team.
Oh, really?
So yeah, that might be why some scenes look really, really good and other scenes look like they were made like 20 years ago.
This is her imagination. Some people don't even have an imagination. They can't picture anything. Maybe when she pictures stuff, it's in poorly rendered CGI. The movie's in a different key, Tony.
Yeah, that's true. It is in another key.
But I think what's happening here, it's similar to the time stop. I think he's essentially testing her. He's like, you were able to see me stop time. That means you're on my level as an artist, essentially, as a visionary. Now, let me bring you to this crude model and see if from it you can visualize the future of Megalopolis. I think in the movie, it's treated as a sort of magical moment where she's literally seeing it. But metaphorically, it's she is also a visionary who can imagine a brighter future. So he hires her.
She just needs to get out of the club first.
Yeah, get out of the club and help me build Megalopolis. It's like Adam Driver. It's a great delivery on the one line. You can't use it for every line. It's just not going to work.
Let's go stop time.
So she works for him now. Of course, that creates tension. The mayor's daughter. The mayor hates Caesar. So that's going to play a role as the movie goes on. There's a parade for the mayor. Or I don't know if it's for the mayor, but there's a parade, and he's very excited about it. The parade is... so somebody from the jazz band in the parade is kind of taking a break, and he's just reading out loud from an article. A Soviet satellite is falling out of orbit in space, and its nuclear fuel will scatter harmlessly. This was another funny moment. I don't know why it's funny, but the way he's reading this,
because you know that's not going to happen. You're like, it's definitely crashing in this fucking city.
Well, it's also like, I get why it's funny. It's funny because he's reading it so monotone, and it's because he's so clearly reading it out loud for our benefit. Yeah. It's like, how do we get this plot point in here? How do we tell people that there's a satellite falling? And we could use the narrator we have, or we can just have this random guy just say it out loud, just apropos of nothing. He just says
also, because there's a lot going on in this movie. That band member who leaves and gets in the
Huey?
car, who is that guy in the rest of the film?
Is he the guy who's Claudio's like henchman the rest of the movie?
That's what I was thinking, but I forgot what he looks. All right, I think that's what it is. I forgot what he looked like early in the band scene. I just remember that a guy left, and then the dude who's reading the magazine, he's just like, "Which way did he go?" I suggest we go the opposite direction.
Yeah, which way did Huey go? Like that way. Well, let's go this way. Then.
Is it Huey throughout the movie? Do you know?
I don't know.
They look really similar. I think it's him. It's really bizarre. Like this random guy, they just like his sisters just spot.
Yeah,
ends up being his like right hand man the rest of the movie.
Maybe they had like Adam Driver has a mechanism for detecting who's on his level. They see him stop time. Maybe they have their own thing. Like he can see us do something else so that he's on our level.
They saw him spit on the street and they're like, we also like to spit. He's on our level.
Yeah, Claudio's boys were cracking me up this whole movie. Remember that scene where they all throw off their hats and say, pick up my hat?
Pick up my hat. Pick up my
hat.
Okay, this guy reading the whole satellite thing out loud.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a funny scene. Why is it funny? If I were to give benefit of the doubt here, which I found myself very inclined to do that, I was thinking after the movie, this movie made me think a lot, and I was thinking about it a lot. I don't think I would have done that if it wasn't made by Francis Ford Coppola, and I didn't know the whole story behind it. If this was just a random movie and it had all the issues we talked about, I think I would not have given it benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's unfair. But I think maybe he's trying to be satirical, where we will read about these potential catastrophes that could destroy the world or kill a lot of people. We read one article, we laugh, we move on. Someone tells us not to worry about it, so we don't. It's in the background, like unimportant. Maybe he's saying that's what we do in the real world. This guy's not paying enough attention to the satellite. He's more worried about which way Huey is going. That's what we're all doing.
Yeah.
We're all wondering which way Huey's going.
Exactly. I don't even know which way I'm going sometimes. At night, Caesar is hard at work. He's distracted by thoughts of his wife, misses her. Coincidentally, this very evening, Julia is looking into that murder case. She's it kind of turns a little bit noir for a bit. She has a ring that acts as sort of a futuristic tape recorder. It's like May 12th, reviewing District Attorney Cicero's files.
The fucking future technology. It was inconsistent. Okay, I didn't like it. I didn't like that some things were very futuristic, and then they're using just old timey cameras with bulbs and regular megaphones. But then they also it pissed me off. Anyway, keep going.
I don't even know that this is the future. They never explicitly say that, right?
No, they actually say at the beginning that this is the third millennium. Which is we're in the third millennium, right?
We're in the third millennium, yeah. 21st century.
Yeah, I think that it's present day, basically.
I mean, technically it could be the future. It just cannot be any later than 2100.
Yeah.
Based on the century given.
All of the does it say the
Yeah, it gives
century?
the century. It says, this is really important here, 21st century.
Okay. I think it's basically modern day. Every time she says her notes to the ring, I found it so funny because that character, she becomes more intelligent as the movie progresses, but a lot of her dialogue, it fluctuates between really interesting and super childish. But again, giving the benefit of the doubt to the movie, I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. And when she's giving these notes to the ring, sometimes it's very simple things. And I don't know, it just looks dumb. It's really, you need to write that down. I feel like...
Well, and it all amounts to nothing. All this evidence she's gathering, ultimately the thing that changes her mind did not depend on any of that stuff.
It almost feels like a kid playing, pretending to be a detective. Yeah. No, she ends up finding real things, but it also seems kind of easy, everything she does.
Well, you looked at her father's files.
She's like, let me read through his files. Let me go read through the Vestas files. It seemed pretty easy.
He still loves his wife. Wow, he really cracked the case there, lady.
Yeah, so Caesar has Fishburne take him out for a drive. Julia follows him, and so does his jealous cousin, Shia LaBeouf. Though he might have been following Julia, I'm not sure. Or maybe the combination of both of them.
I think he was following both. He was in love with Julia, but then he saw that she was following him, and he follows them. Gotcha. And then that's when his Sony camera flips the logo backwards.
Nice. Which might have just been them trying to avoid a copyright issue. It's not Sony, it's Jonas.
That's not how that works.
And the S is backwards because we meant it that way.
I had a friend recently that was trying to, on YouTube, watch an old TV show, and he tried the flipping the image thing. I'm like, oh, dude, that stopped working years ago. You're late to the game on that idea, bud.
Well, people will give me that advice. They're if you tried changing the colors and flipping the video around. And I'm like, look, I'm trying to build a business. I'm not trying to skirt the system and just hope nobody spend the rest of my life looking at over my shoulder. I like to do things the right way.
YouTube's got heat maps and shit. That stuff, they figured that out a while ago.
Well, that's where you could make a second channel and then always copyright claim yourself on the other channel. So you already have a claim. Nobody else can claim you.
Yeah, they figured that one out too. A lot of people try to get away with that one.
Well, so Julia follows Caesar into a building, into a room where, first I should mention, while they're driving, Caesar's looking around and he has some of those visions you talked about, Tony.
Are they visions? I don't know.
Well, he sees Lady Justice, a big statue. We see her fall over. You see a couple of other statues. I don't know, Daniel, can you identify, are these specific figures we should know? You can kind of get the vibe of what they are. So one of the statues is somebody with a spear. So you imagine this is the warrior who defends us. One of the statues is a guy holding a tablet. So you assume this is the thinkers, the philosophers.
By the way, I love the look of all of this. I would have loved this shit even more in the movie. So the fact that it's just limited to this scene is why I'm what's going on here?
It's a great moment. It's very striking images. I was going to say, I think the parts of this movie that work best are parts that you could slice them out of this movie and they would just stand on their own. It's a great short film where you just watch these, when Lady Justice falls, it's not like she just falls over. You kind of see her steady herself on the building next to her. It looks like a painting. And it made me feel something, but it's not dependent on the context of the movie. It's just a very striking visual.
Yeah.
Now, when Lady Justice falls, and then Julia is it Julia or Julie?
Julia.
It's Julia.
Julia, okay. Because I have my notes, I have both. But so Lady Justice falls. Julia looks around at all the poor people and says, "We're surrounded by injustice." What do you think Coppola's trying to say with this scene?
Rich people bad. What?
We need the Justice League.
Oh, that's what he's saying. At times, this does feel like Coppola trying to be Zack Snyder. I'm not going to lie.
Well, Julia follows Caesar. She sees him buy some flowers. Who are the flowers for? She follows him into the building, into a room. From Caesar's perspective, we see his wife is on a bed, surrounded by people in white robes.
Is this part of his time powers? Like, is he traveling back in time to when she was
He's asking too many questions. You're not supposed to ask about these things.
But why does he have to go all the way to this room in this part of the city to experience this?
Yeah, Gil, actually, can you explain that?
I saw, okay, here's how I see it. The time stop, Julia is invited into that. She can experience it. But here, Caesar is like playing with his wife's hair, and she sees him sitting, and Julia sees him sitting over nothing. So she's not seeing what he sees. So I read that as telling us this is just in his imagination. Maybe this is his wife's, maybe this is the bed him and his wife used to share. So he just comes here to remember her. The white robes, though, and then the lady playing the harp, it makes it look like this is a heaven scenario.
Yeah.
So maybe he's just remembering her. He's imagining she's in a better place. Julia can't see this all, but she can understand what he's doing. So she is shocked. He still loves her. Oh my God, he still loves her. And so to her, this is the proof that he didn't kill her. But that's how I read it.
I guess so, yeah.
And Tony, isn't there a scene just like this in Batman 1989? Where she follows him, she sees him buy a rose.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when he
him.
visited his parents' grave and he like puts the rose on the thing. Yeah, and then she looks up his backstory. Kind of.
That'll come up again.
This is exactly like Batman 89. You're right. It's the same movie.
You thought this movie was based off of the conflict between Cataline and Cicero, but it's actually based on Batman 1989.
It's like those two things are not like a corollary. It's like this person
got
versus
just
this
as
person.
confusing of a third act as Batman 89. It's like, why? He's in a church now? What the fuck is going on?
We see Caesar and Julie on top of a big clock overlooking New Rome. And she asks him, which is the most important institution you're going to retain in your new utopia? And he says marriage.
Yeah.
That's right. And then Fishburne narrates some more about how the winds carry from the ancients what they learned from their ancients, the poetry of Sappho. And she was a great poet from ancient Greece in real life. Most of her poetry is lost, but some fragments of it have survived until now. And Julia quotes one of them. And we know she's very good at quoting later. Her mom says that. The quote essentially says that love is more important than anything. Yeah, I think a couple things in this scene. On the surface level, the obvious stuff. Julia is falling in love with Caesar. Coppola is telling us love is important. Love is very important. Marriage will be the only institution, or the most important institution I keep. We have this ancient poetry. And I would say the slightly less obvious, what else might he be saying here, is that he believes that humanity does and will progress forward. So yes, Rome fell. Ancient Greece isn't around anymore, but the good stuff stands the test of time. And this ancient poet, this little fragment of her philosophy, or of her poetry, that love is more important than anything, that little nugget of truth survives until now. So that's kind of how I read the point of her quoting this ancient poet.
Idea. Yeah. I also just like the whole setting. I like that clock that they stand on, how you can see the whole city. It's a really good imagery.
I thought it was really cool. Also on the topic of imagery, just the aesthetic of Caesar's office. The first time we see it, when they walk in, you see two assistants working like in synchrony. And the window, it just looks like a painting of the Chrysler building. It looks very cool, very Art Deco.
So some time passes. Wow Platinum and Hamilton Crassus III. Remember, it's John Voight, the rich man.
Yes.
They get married. Their marriage takes place at Madison Square Garden. I'm not saying like a place like Madison Square Garden. It is Madison Square
literally
Garden.
Again, so the inside looks like a Roman Coliseum, but the outside just looks like Madison Square Garden. Like, can we have a little consistency here?
It's such a cool idea, though, that in the middle of this modern city, you have what they referred to as a Coliseum. And they mentioned gladiators. I was really hoping it was going to be legitimate, real gladiator matches. But it seems like even in the reality of this movie, it's like an homage to gladiator matches.
Yeah.
Where it's more like wrestling.
Wrestling was pretty funny, though. Like WWE style wrestlers.
The funny thing is, like, the
Coliseum.
Coliseum had actual wrestling. It wasn't WWE wrestling. So to see, like, kind of like the sports entertainment wrestling in a Roman Coliseum was fun.
Yeah, and you have like acrobats and all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
And that was an homage to WrestleMania 10, which was Roman themed and was actually terrible. Was that WrestleMania 10? I might have screwed up. Sorry. I need to get that right. Continue.
This is very important. Everybody is at the wedding. Claudio's there. Not sure if you heard the rumor, by the way. He might be sleeping with his sister. You'll just hear people say it. You don't see anybody. You just hear voices thrown on screen. Somebody off camera just, you're not here, he's sleeping with his sister.
And there's a satellite coming down also.
Don't worry about it, though. Caesar and Julia are there, of course. Vesta Sweetwater is there, wearing a dress designed by Caesar, made of Megalon, has cameras on one side that project the image on the other, so she looks invisible. You have Caesar's mother, played by Talia Shire. Last thing I saw her in was Godfather 3, 1990. I felt bad, though, because she's apparently had 44 acting credits since then.
Yeah.
Not including Megalopolis. I looked through the list. I have not seen a single one of those movies.
I'm going to look
now,
through
of course,
the list.
like her image was in Rocky Balboa and possibly Creed, so I'm not counting those. But she's great in this movie. What's that, Tony?
I'm looking through her list now to see if I've seen her in anything.
I Heart Huckabees was on there, so that's one that people might have seen. I never saw it. But she's so funny in this movie because she's basically playing the mother you can never please. Like at one point he kisses her and she's like, "You're hurting me. He hurt me."
I feel like she was introduced way late into the film. Is that just me? Like, and I kept forgetting he had a family outside of his like uncle and cousin.
I do remember when she was introduced, I was like, "Oh, I had no idea we were going to see more of his family."
Yeah,
you were about to say something.
I was a little confused by her dynamic too. But anyway, keep going.
No, she was introduced in this scene, right? At the Coliseum? Or was it earlier?
No, she was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Even this, though, this is not like the first 20 minutes of the movie. Like we're into it now. But yeah, I find her performance is great in this movie. Again, as the mother you can never please. And I love how Adam Driver never wants to show his frustration with her. So he's always so patient, but you could just see him gritting his teeth. And even in this scene, he stands up behind her and like looks like he's about to rip her head off, and then just gently grabs her head, and then just like kisses it and walks out.
And
but
that's
then he throws
after
his chair under the table, in the exact same motion. Ben Affleck slamming the door on Jennifer Lopez. That's like what he does with the chair here.
Also, it was WrestleMania 9 that was Roman Empire theme because they recorded that at Caesar's Palace. Sorry, I just wanted to. I needed to make a retraction for.
I'll go back to that part and I'll just record my voice over yours. You're listening to WrestleMania 10. 9.
Gil, we need to watch WrestleMania 9 and cover it on the podcast.
Well, it's not a very good WrestleMania. That's the one where Hogan ruined the main event. But you love the Roman Empire. This is how it fits in. I'm looking at it now, like, oh yeah, they were all dressed like Romans when they're interviewing the wrestlers. What a shit show. Anyway.
So far, it sounds awesome from your description. All right, this is a very, I would say, already infamous scene. Caesar takes some drugs.
Yes.
And so throughout things kind of go crazy here for a few minutes. I think when people say the movie's incoherent, this is probably one of the scenes they're thinking of. So you have a lot of shenanigans at the wedding, circus performers, gladiator wrestlers, and more. You keep cutting to reactions from John Voight, who I found hilarious in this movie. One of my favorite parts of the movie, Like at one point, one of the circus performers falls and then catches himself on a rope. So it's like, oh, you think he's going to fall, but not really. And John Voight is drunk. He's like, you fooled me. Just cuts to reaction shots. You'll see him like dancing and stuff. So during Caesar's, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I know this scene is people are like pointing out like what's going on. I get that he's supposed to have like a breakdown. I guess all artists they have like moments where they melt down and they like turn to vices and stuff. And I guess this is it. Like his brain is too much. He needs to like drown things out. It does go on a little too long. And the invisible rope, I was like, is that part of their weird powers? I'm like, oh no, that's just I'm learning now. It's just a stupid thing that they did. So yeah, it's very frustrating.
I hated the rope thing. I'll say overall, I did enjoy the scene. Like it was just so bizarre, and the visuals of it were fun. It did become a little bit exhausting, specifically during the tug of war stuff. I just thought it looked stupid, and I didn't like it. And it was one of the things they improvised on set and decided to just throw it into the movie. And it reminded me of something James Gunn once said. He doesn't do a lot of improv on set because he was saying how you spent months writing the script. And by the time you get to actually shooting it, you're going to be bored with the material. So then you start improvising on set. It all feels really fresh, and you have a bias toward the new material, and you forget why you liked that original material to begin with. And even for me, if I spend weeks working on a video, and then I have to watch it over and over, because I don't know if you do this, Tony, but if I find one issue in a video, I'll tweak it, re-export, and now I watch the entire thing over because who knows if something went wrong in that export. So like I just released a Terrifier retrospective. I watched it 5 times yesterday. By the time by the time I get to the point of hitting the publish button, I'm like, this video sucks. Like it's a boring video. And I got to imagine that happens on a big film set too. And you got to be careful about that.
Well, one thing I've been doing lately is putting my episodes up early so my patrons can let me know any mistakes I made, but sometimes even they miss the mistakes, and I'll just leave it in the final thing because no one left a comment about it.
That is pretty genius, just crowdsource error checking.
Like, here's the episode early. Let me know if I fucked up. It's helped a couple times. I made some pretty big mistakes and I was able to like fix it before it went out. So that was
good. I could use that. On the video you were on, the Godzilla Kong retrospective.
Oh, the one that killed my podcast. Yes.
Yeah, that one. I referred to Godzilla as Kong at one point. Yeah.
How dare you?
Anyway, so Caesar's in a drug haze. You hear him talking to himself. I think what you're hearing at first is his Nobel Prize speech. Because he's like, thank you, Your Majesty. Here we are in Sweden. I understand there's a buffet, so the faster I can say my speech, the faster we can eat. What I like are those little hot dogs wrapped in a pastry. I can't remember the name of them right now. And he mentions the Nobel Prize. So I think the implication is that is what he said when he won the Nobel Prize. I don't know why it's playing right now. I guess he's thinking about it.
Yeah.
But that hot dog line was great. Julia is watching him, stoned out of his mind. It's a classic drug case scene.
Yeah.
Everything's going crazy. He's messing with time. But then he starts to repeat a couple of phrases over and over. And they start to work their way into the visual, too. So in the Colosseum, you'll see these words on the marquee. But he says, when we leap into the unknown, we prove that we are free. Mm-hmm. Daniel, what does that mean?
This is about, well, first of all, as an artist, you're putting forth a vision. You're like Adam Driver at the beginning of the movie, leaning over the edge. You don't know what can happen, but that is what, that's our freedom. We're not scared. We're willing to go and jump into that abyss.
Usually in life, you just go with the structured path. You go to school. After that, you go to get a job. You do all the stuff you're expected to do. That's all the known. But the real risk takers, they do something different. Maybe they make a movie called Megalopolis. And by doing that, you prove you are free.
Maybe they make a podcast about a movie like Megalopolis.
I'm glad you guys were thinking about all this stuff. Me, I'm just like, when they cut back to Aubrey Plaza eating those grapes all sexy again, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, her and John Voight, they're sitting like kings and queens where you lie on that like futon thing.
Yeah, show that hot virgin girl sing. I don't care about Adam Driver being shirtless with 10 arms. Like, show me the hot girl again.
I will say, usually... go ahead, Daniel.
I was just gonna say on the point though of the courage of an artist, it's really easy just to be somebody on the sidelines, casting stones. But to do what we do, making a podcast, it's very hard.
It's hard. It's hard work. It's hard work.
Gil, the joke is that we are the critics casting stones because we're criticizing the
Casting
movie.
aspersions.
Yes.
I do think about that. I'm like, if somebody leaving mean comments, that's not the same as what we do. Because Francis Ford Coppola is never going to see this video.
No, I'm sending it to him.
And if you know what though, I think he would appreciate it because we're having a dialogue with the movie. We're trying to break it down.
Yeah, we're not ripping it apart, to be honest. Like, we're not, like, shitting on all of it.
When we leap into the unknown, we prove that we are free. Here's the other phrase he says. This is kind of paraphrasing. This is one of those places where I did have a hard time hearing word for word what he was saying. But if it's our mind that can invent gods, and from them flows such power, why can't we apply that power directly? Daniel, you want to translate that one for us?
Can you say that one more time?
Our mind can invent gods.
Yes.
Gods are very powerful. So why can't we apply that power directly?
Okay. I think this is just the same point he makes later on, that we are a genius species. We can do anything, and we're holding ourselves back. Like, we can do incredible godlike things. Let's stop with all this nonsense and let's do those good things and let's make a utopia.
Yeah.
We also see, I agree with that. We see Caesar's wife. I mean, her image appears throughout the movie, like this very close up of her face in like a blue hue, which I guess later we'll learn is because she drowned. So it's like she's underwater.
Yeah.
Her image starts to creep into into this haze. And there is a moment I love in Adam Driver's performance where he's like dazed, but then he'll kind of like suddenly make himself look very serious. It's almost like he's trying to get her out of his mind because it's like torturing him. Now, meanwhile, this is Tony, the moment you've been waiting for. There's an important ceremony going on. New Rome's own Vestal Virgin performs a song. That's Vesta Sweetwater, played by pop star Grace Vanderwall. As she performs, there's a cool effect where there's holograms of her. So there's dozens of Grace Vanderwalls. And you're like, Tony is like, this is the best movie ever. More of this.
I don't know who she was. I still haven't listened to her music. It's probably terrible.
Really excited when you found out she's wearing an invisible dress. Then you're like,
because it was made of Megalon.
That just means I can see what's behind her.
What can't Megalon do? It can make dresses invisible. It can make flower buildings. It can grow your brain back. It's anything can happen.
Flower buildings.
Yeah.
As she performs, everyone is pledging millions of dollars to the city by raising QR codes in the air.
That was funny.
Daniel, in your second or third viewing, did you try bringing up your phone camera?
Scan the QR code.
Did you?
No. We got to try
Well, you
that
know what?
next time.
I'll go back tonight and I'll try to scan that QR code.
It'll open a donation to Francis Ford Coppola. He's like, I need money after this.
For Francis Ford Coppola's virginity.
Hold on, I'm literally looking up QR code.
What do they call me?
Megalopolis.
So during the
wait,
ceremony, Claudio Wait, Tony, are you looking up the QR code thing?
Yeah, but it led to a tweet that said the funniest part about Megalopolis is why do they have QR codes if they don't have phones? Did they not have phones?
Oh,
They
I
had
don't
stuff
recall
like
seeing phones. I mean, they must.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, that's not the funniest part of the movie at all, though. I completely disagree with that tweet. You didn't tweet that, did you, Tony?
No, I didn't tweet that.
Okay, I knew you tweeted that. You would not be on this episode.
I can't find anything.
Well, during the ceremony,
when it hits digital, at our New Year's Megalopolis party, we'll all scan the QR code.
I'm just bankrupt. All of my money has gone to Francis Ford Coppola's virginity pledge.
But during the ceremony, Claudio Shia LaBeouf unleashes his dastardly plan. He plays a sex tape of this supposed virgin mid-coitus with one Caesar Catalina. The other problem is that she's supposed to be 16, supposedly. But don't worry, we will soon find out. She's lying about her age. She's actually in her 20s.
And she's Indonesian.
Yeah, I love that they had to like come up with two things to get him out of that situation. It's like the image was fake and it wasn't him. It's like, okay. But if it was, it would have been totally fine because she's of age. It's like, oh, okay. Well, just it not being him is fine.
That second one might have been more for the audience, for him to be like, don't worry, we did not go there with this movie.
Yeah.
Also, is it just me, or was it really obvious in the footage that it's not I'm like, it did actually, at first I was confused what the problem even is. I was like, the problem is that clearly she's not what she presents herself as, but I didn't get that it was actually supposed to be Caesar, because I'm like, it's not Caesar.
Yeah,
like,
during the movie,
he looks like him.
I turned to you and I was like, that's not Caesar, is it? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised. Speaking, you'll appreciate this, Tony, because you don't like the inconsistencies in the sci-fi technology. Couldn't do a deep fake.
Yeah.
They
have holograms and invisible dresses, but they don't have phones or deep fakes, apparently.
I guess you could write it off as Claudio just doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He's like, this is good enough. And he was right.
But later, the police commissioner meets with Mayor Cicero and will say to him, like, hey, this Claudio guy's becoming a big threat, and he's some type of genius. He can get the crowd going wild, and also he has somehow the ability to edit videos. Literally, it was something like that. Like, this deep fake technology is like magic in this one.
When it says he can talk everything. I just remember that line stuck out to me. Well, so at this point, Caesar's really starting to freak out. Lying on the floor, you see a bunch of arms around him. And then there's another phrase here. Instead of conceiving of the shape of an object, we can conceive it at the cellular level. Daniel?
Yeah, duh.
Needs no explanation?
I mean, when I heard that line, I was thinking about Megalon as like nanotechnology, which is like engineering at the cellular level or atomic level, which gives you all this power. But like, I don't know if that's really what that's supposed to mean.
Maybe it's getting at the idea of we don't have to accept things as the way they are or assume that things can't change too much. Instead, we could think about from the ground level, like throw away your idea of what society can be. And from a cellular level, imagine from the ground up what would be perfect. That's essentially what he's doing with Megalopolis, because he wants to build a city that is, normally cities happen organically and they evolve over time. Nobody sits down and says, what would the perfect city be?
Yeah.
And I guess that's what he's doing with Megalopolis.
And it would be a weird plant city that looked like garbage, apparently.
I mean, when I think utopia, I also picture Gotham from Batman Forever.
Yeah, his whole thing with the utopia. I do like later on, what's his face is like, utopias turn into dystopias. Like, it's just like, this is all going to fail at some point. I know we're all supposed to be positive, but I'm like, yeah, you're going to need I don't think it's going to work out long term. But anyway.
You're upsetting Daniel, I think.
I'm sorry, Daniel.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, the mayor grabs the mic after this video is played for the whole crowd, and he starts screaming about how terrible Caesar is. No man exists who does not hold you in detestation. And then John Voight yells, I hold you in detestation, whatever that means. Great.
So good.
You made John Voight sound way more Jewish than he is at that moment.
What is this detestation?
You sound like Eddie Murphy playing the Jewish guy in Coming to America. That's what you sound like right now.
I sound like Cranky Kong from the Mario movie. He calls for Caesar's resignation, and people start beating him up. And then he starts singing opera in his underwear, and Julia helps him out of the building. The cops pick him up and bring him to jail.
And by the way, that was like the full text of, or like it was part of Cicero's anti-Cataline speech. And one of the really famous lines in there was something like, how long will we have to suffer you? Something like that. But that like phrasing is what's been repeated in like many different speeches.
I'll say that in terms of quoting ancient texts or quoting Shakespeare, saying things that you wouldn't normally say today, I think Adam Driver does a great job of it. Like when he was doing the Hamilton speech, there were parts where I thought he was diverting from the speech and just speaking casually, but he was still using the words, but I think just delivering them as organically as you could in a modern movie. I thought he did, of everyone, to me, I thought he did the best job. And maybe that's because his character's meant to be eccentric, so it just doesn't come off as like sticking out like a sore thumb. Shia LaBeouf, he's feeling good. This night could not have gone better. His cousin's in jail.
And he looks fabulous.
Looks great. He opens up his revenge book. I think it says like Vindictus on the front of it. And he crosses out a picture of Caesar, then laughs like a maniac. There's a window behind him. You can see the night sky and the city. Wasn't there just a scene just like this, Tony, in Batman 89?
It was. Wait till they get a load of me.
Yeah, Joker, city's behind him. He's looking at his book.
It's exactly like Batman 89.
I think that's the last reference they had here. Richard Roper, actually, in his review, he referenced Batman. Because he said that he thought Dustin Hoffman felt like a character who stepped out of Batman Forever.
That's pretty funny.
We cut to Caesar in jail, lying on the floor in his own filth.
And he can't stop time.
He can't stop time anymore.
He got too drunk and lost his power, I guess.
Which is, I don't know that you needed... Okay, I guess I see why they did it. I don't know that you needed the whole plot of framing him to get him in jail, because I don't even know if he's aware of that at this point. He's so out of it. So him losing his power feels like it's more the result of him having a mental breakdown. And I feel like the mental breakdown is enough. Now, I guess you need the villain. You need them to attempt to take him down a few times, and maybe some of those attempts fail. So this is one of them. But it felt like a more convoluted than necessary attempt with the framing, and she's underage, and it just keeps adding all this stuff where it feels like it's making a broader point or something that I don't know it belonged here or was necessary. But the main point is that seeing him lying in his own filth reminded me of you, Daniel. So I figured this would be a great point for you to take over the recap. You can be Lawrence Fishburne from here on out.
Why, thank you.
And that'd be a great time.
You got to go deeper with that voice.
Why, thank you. Why, thank you.
I have a Lawrence Fishburne action figure over there of him and like Morpheus in a chair. I should just like pull it up to the screen.
Hold it up.
All right, so Caesar's woken up in prison, bloodied, and discovers he can no longer control time. We have Julia doing another classic snooping through the records, and she discovers that the Vestal Virgin, Vesta Sweetwater, is a fraud. She's actually from Indonesia, not New Rome, and is not a minor. She's actually 23, and Caesar is therefore exonerated. Julia brings this news to Mayor Cicero, but when she walks in, at first we see him sitting at a slanted desk in the sand, struggling to keep papers in front of him. Then we snap back to reality. And then after a classic, Cicero goes looking at the document. Who else knows about this? No one. He tears up the document.
He's like, I have other copies.
Yeah, she's like, I can get another one.
She says she has other copies. And then she says she's going to go to Hamilton Crassus for help.
Yeah, I think seeing him buried in sand in his office, I think that's showing us that Julia... she's more and more like Caesar, unlocking that creative part of her brain, showing that perception. She can see what her father's going through, and she can more than just see it, but can also visualize this metaphor and see something.
Yes, visual. So we see that she's fantasizing about this, and it cuts back to reality. That's why the statue thing was confusing me, because it never like cuts to like what's really there. So that's why
that's true.
Like, yeah, here I get it. The statue scene, I'm like, I don't know if these are real or not. Why are
so going back to my hypothetical Coppola, where he would say, like, well, in a poem, would you expect me to explain what's real or not? Like, well, if half the time you did explain what's real or not, then the other half I would expect you to. That's a good point. Yeah.
So Julia visits Hamilton Crassus, and we get a great elevator scene as she's going up between Julia and Wow Platinum is her last name?
Wow Platinum.
Yeah, Wow Platinum.
Yeah. She says
how you forget that name.
3 things you need to know. 1, Crassus is mine. 2, the bank is mine. And 3, this might surprise you, Caesar's also mine. And Julia, I don't know, is like a little concerned, but also kind of laughs.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, okay, thank you.
Crassus is suspicious that Claudio was involved in playing that video of Caesar at the party because Claudio's always had it in. Sorry, I wrote Claudio here. Claudio?
Yeah, it's
Claudio.
Claudio.
I mean, it's spelled C-L-O, but it seems to be pronounced Claudio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Claudio's always had it out for Caesar. And then we see on the news that the DA has announced the truth about Vesta, exonerating Caesar. He's also announced that the video of Caesar and Vesta was doctored. It's a deep fake. And then we see
Wait,
Vesta.
they say it's a deep fake?
No, they don't say deep fake.
Oh, okay. I think it was just
Sorry.
another guy that just kind of looked like him.
Well, they said doctored. I think they did say that it was doctored or edited. And then later on, they do reference that somehow he was able to edit the video. And they refer to that as some like crazy power that Claudio has.
All right, I will say that's a criticism of the movie then. It should have looked just like Adam Driver. We're a lot more like him. But okay, take it away.
And then lastly, we see that Vesta bounces back with like a new like bad girl persona while the city is in a rising financial and moral crisis.
Yeah, I mean, it's just more of the like people are distracted by this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like consumerism and like everything's a lie, right?
Yeah.
The virginity was a lie. Her
Yeah.
it was a lie. It's all a lie.
And even if you lie, it doesn't matter. You just pivot, public goes with you blindly.
Yep.
One thing, this is another good example, I think, of a plot confusion is Julia goes to see Hamilton, but we don't see her talk to Hamilton. We only see her talk to Julia, but then the DA announces the evidence. So I don't know. I guess she spoke with Hamilton and Hamilton spoke with the DA, but the DA is Cicero's boy. So I don't know why he did I guess Crassus pulled some strings. I don't know. Kind of confusing.
Again, kind of get lost in the weeds around this part of the movie.
Yeah. Well, it's what we said earlier where you could step back and you can see point A and B. Okay. He was framed. He was exonerated. The steps in between, and you look at it when you look at it at a cellular level, as Adam Driver said, it does start to feel confusing. And that's where some of the incoherence comes in.
All right. Well, we're back on the rooftop, that cool clock building. Julia finds Caesar there. He tells her, he's lost his power. He's in despair. She says, artists can never lose their control of time. You taught me that. How painters saw time. How architecture is frozen music. How dancers combine time and space. Musicians rhythmatize it. Poets sing it. Caesar replies that he didn't murder his wife. The obvious reply.
Yeah.
But that his moods and his mania drove her to something. I don't know. We'll see later. Julia suggests that he try stopping time for her, and it works. They're astonished, and he holds her over the edge, kissing her.
Yep. And the whole time, I'm like, don't fall. Don't fall.
And he lets go. One hand is holding on, the other hand's holding her, and then he lets go of that hand, too.
Yeah.
That was the most unbelievable part of the movie.
I got his palms sweaty the same way I did when I saw that movie, Free Solo. I felt exactly the same in this scene, especially the way she just jumps onto the, what do you call it, the beam, and she's just walking so
Isn't
casually.
Like a girder, metal girder.
Girder, yeah. So if you were to, one thing, watching it the second time, I was shocked at how little he spent without his powers and how quickly he got it back. It's literally a span of 5 minutes. He loses it and then gets it back.
Yeah.
But reverse engineering it. So why did he lose his power? Do you have thoughts on that, Daniel? What took it away from him?
So let me take a weak stab at it. I think there's something about he was stuck on the past. And I think when he was drunk and on the drugs and stuff, it's him dwelling in the past of his wife's death and all this stuff. What he needs is he needs love. He needs to allow himself to love because that is timeless. That's what gives him power over time. And by him embracing Julia, he's embracing the future and the unlimited power of love again. And that's what gives him back that power over time.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, because during his breakdown, you keep seeing images of his wife, and you can see it's really like hitting him. And even while he was working earlier, we see that while he's trying to work, she keeps popping into his mind. So it's saying something like, no man is an island. You can't do this on your own. You require this support of another person and a partner. And later, once him and Julia are actually together, he'll tell her, like, I am nothing without you. I cannot create without you. My inspiration comes from you, and all that kind of stuff. Now, I guess he was able to do it. He was able to stop time by himself before, but I guess you can only do that for so long before it catches up with you.
Yeah.
Especially as the barriers keep coming in his way. There's not a free path for him to just go and build Megalopolis. The mayor's trying to stop him. Claudio's running around doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Wait,
and
can't he just, real quick, can't he just like stop time and then just like kill everyone in his way?
So, okay, that's the thing in general. You know what's funny is it seems like his ability to control time has no effect on his anything, right? Like, what is he using it for? It seems he only uses it for fun things, like, I guess, to pull alcohol out of his system back into a bottle and then back inside him.
Yeah, but like, if you just stop time, you can manipulate so many things to work in your favor.
It does.
I guess because he's a good guy, but still.
Well, this is where I say that this movie made me think, but a lot of my thinking wasn't about the message of the movie. It was on a meta level. Like, is that okay? Can you just bring something metaphorical into a movie, throw it in there, but don't really intertwine it with the plot in any kind of logical way? And I don't know. I mean, there's like a line you have to straddle this line of, if your movie feels too grounded in some kind of reality, and sometimes the metaphors are part of the reality and sometimes they aren't, it can be distracting. And it's a problem to be distracted, because then you're not going to be on the journey with the movie and you're not going to feel what it wants you to feel. So yeah, I don't know if this time stop is an example of that. Like, Daniel, for you, does the time stop work in this movie? Do you find it distracting, or
yeah, it didn't really work for me, because I think I can intellectually try to come up with the meaning for it, but I didn't feel anything with the time stoppage, and it didn't really make sense for me during the movie. I don't know that it even was a distraction. I just didn't get it.
I would occasionally just forget that he could do it until it happened. I'm like, oh, right. Time travel. That's like a thing that he can do.
Well, and it's such a major plot point, and it's supposed to be like him at his worst, that he can no longer do it. But then you're watching and you're like, okay, you can no longer stop time for a few seconds, do nothing, and then start it again. It never makes it this thing where you're like, I wish I could do that, or this is a moment of bliss and he's lost it. So it does kind of fail here, even as a metaphor.
I agree.
Cicero has a dream. He wakes up from a bad dream where he sees a cloud that looks like a hand reach out and grab the moon. He declares the omens to be bad. His wife responds, and I think I got this line right, I'm not sure, only those in a nightmare are capable of praising the moonlight. Gil. Or Tony, what's that mean?
Well, you know, if you were to ask Francis Ford Coppola, I'm sure he'd say it's like a poem.
Touche.
Also, I kept getting distracted by his wife, because I didn't see this movie, but I think she's the old racist lady in that movie that came out last month, The Front Room with Brandy, and those trailers were cracking me up. So every time I saw her, I'm like, oh, I forgot to see that funny movie that she was in. But no, I have no idea what the hell she's saying there. I just thought the visual of the hand on the moon was cool.
It's a cool visual. It's not the kind of dream that would cause me to wake up in a cold sweat. Like, that's happened where I've like woken up, but it's like monsters are after me. I'm about to die. I'm backed into a corner. It's not like, oh my God, the cloud was a hand and it grabbed the moon. So what did she say? Only those in a nightmare
are capable of praising the moonlight.
Okay, all right. I'm coming up with this now. You can only praise the moonlight if you see it. You only see it if you're up at night, which you shouldn't be. It's because you're plagued. She's saying that this comes from within. This is not a random nightmare. He's living in a nightmare because something's weighing on him. because he knows that he's pushing his daughter away. He knows that he is an obstacle in Caesar's path for selfish reasons. He's not doing his job. He's not looking out for the good of his city or mankind. He's living in a nightmare. And that's why he can sit here and praise the moonlight. I would argue he's not praising it because he was afraid of it.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thrust of it.
Well, he was afraid of the hand stealing the moonlight. So, in a way, he kind of praised it.
That's why he's freaked out. He took the moonlight away.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, nailed it.
Meanwhile, I'm just thinking of like every time I had a girlfriend who woke up from like a nightmare, and I was just like, "Go back to sleep. It was nothing. Shut up."
You're like, only those
I never pulled out
by
like,
nightmares.
I never like pulled out like deep like thoughts or poems and stuff. I'd be like, "There's no one in the room. It's just us. Go back to sleep."
Don't worry. There's no such thing as clouds.
Tony, think about the bad omens you just totally ignored. One of your girlfriend woke up in the middle of the night and said, "Beware the Ides of March. Stay away from the Senate House."
Never collaborate on a Godzilla video with Gil. Like,
Your channel will be taken away.
All right.
No, they would just be like, "I saw a monster." And I'm like, "There's no monster in the room. Shut up. Go back to sleep."
We have a fun work scene. We alluded to this before. A montage of Caesar's fun times at the office. Weird games with his coworkers that are somehow work. Sure what my office job looks like. And he's dancing with Julia. Everything's great. Good times.
Yeah, again,
is this when she's like controlling that orb? And I'm like, wait, is that a Megalon thing or
No,
the weird time power?
That's a bit later.
Yeah, you're talking about the group of them working in the office where they're carrying that girl across the room.
Okay, I'm misremembering because I only saw this once. I know you guys love it. It's your favorite movie. You're going to watch it 15 times. So yeah, I misremembered when that happened. My bad.
Yeah. That does feel like I said earlier, them planning for the city. At no point does it look like planning for a city.
Yeah.
But it does look like an improv troupe playing a game. And I feel like that's what was happening.
But yeah, I guess this is how you program Megalon, which also has like memories in it and shit. I'm still not really sure how the Megalon works, but let's keep going here.
We see Caesar's mother again. Caesar introduces Julia to her, but she's uninterested. She instead talks about how she wishes she had a girl instead of her genius son. And then we get a series of strange lines from her. Broadly, there's, despite what you think, I'm not crazy. My voices say I'm sane. Without that girl's love, referring to Julia, you're going to be a has-been and a fake, just like your father. String theory, I don't know if you guys have heard of that. Little strings buzzing around. Why didn't he mention her when he got his Nobel Prize? When you're with her, you're finally able to forget me. He denies that, kisses her, and she claims it hurts. Explain.
Well, all right. I think, well, first off, when she says, I wish I had a girl, he goes, Julia's a girl. Trying to tell her, like, you can have a girl in your life who is like a daughter because I'm going to be with her. The comment about string theory, she's like, there's 11 dimensions. They haven't proved it yet. The way I read this whole scene is that she has felt neglected by her son. She also feels looked down on by him. He's all into science and Megalon and all this stuff. So it's almost, that string theory comment is her being like, I know about this stuff too.
Yeah, that is a weird thing where like the women in this society are meant to like just focus on superficial things. Like even the young girl reporters are just like asking if she's dating him or like what clothes they're wearing. I don't know. It's a little bizarre. I'm just like, okay, are women like second class? But then Julia was in college and had the ability to learn all this stuff. So yeah, I was a little confused about that.
Wait, it is also like later there's a scene where they sit down to play cards and Cicero and Caesar are trying to have like a serious discussion about the future. And Julia and her mom are just trying to like, let's play cards, trying to distract from it. So yeah, I don't know if it was intentional or just the way Coppola wrote this without
But then they
realizing
can
it.
participate in the conversation. They do know all the stuff. They just don't want to talk
and then,
about
of course, Julia is in on all of this.
Yeah.
On his level.
Yeah, it was a little bizarre.
I think going back to the mom conversation, I think that's the thrust of it, is that she has a resentment toward her son. She feels like he's neglecting her. To some extent, he probably is. Like the fact, Tony, that you were surprised that she's in the movie, like every time she shows up, like, oh yeah, he has a mother. He probably doesn't spend enough time with her. Who does? We could all spend more time with her.
He never calls her.
And Daniel, are you coming home tomorrow?
I don't know. I got to figure it out.
Yeah. When he tries to kiss her, he hurt me. It's just, it's her saying like, this is too little. You're trying to make this gesture. That's not what I want. Like nothing you do can be enough to make up for what you've done to me. I'm not speaking from personal experience.
Next, we have the scene that Tony was talking about where Julia's all like controlling like a Star Wars ball or something. Yeah. I think it was a Death Star, like a little mini Death Star.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, when you said Star Wars ball, I think that's what we all figured.
Well, look, he is friends with George Lucas.
They're playing around. They're having a fun time. They declare their love for each other. Caesar tells her, "You've taken my life and turned it into something really beautiful. And I can't create anything without you next to me. You are the driving force behind everything. If I could imitate just 10% of how you are in the world, it would be a success. I've never loved anybody like you." None of you guys going to tear up to that?
No, I've only ever had girlfriends who tried to sabotage things for me, so or get me to stop working and creating things. So I couldn't relate to fucking anything in this scene. How about you, Gil?
No, I have a very healthy relationship.
Oh, it must be nice. Anyway.
I liked this. I liked this scene. I thought it was nice.
Let's bring it back.
I thought it was nice.
Sorry, I literally had a girlfriend who would like start fights because I was working too much and get me to stop working. So this scene, I'm just like, can't relate, Adam. I'm sorry. But anyway, continue.
One anecdote from one of Coppola's interviews, he talked about a Marcus Aurelius quote that really helped him process his wife's death. And it was basically about imitating the person that you loved so that they will continue living on in you. And he said that was like the thing that really helped him get over his wife's death. And I couldn't help but think about that in this line where Caesar says, if he could imitate just 10% of how she is in the world.
Yeah, what does throw me off when he says, "I've never loved anyone like you."
Yeah.
It does. Now I think about his ex-wife who passed.
Yep.
I don't know. Do you read anything into that?
Yeah,
when did she die exactly?
I don't know how long ago.
Was it while they were filming?
Oh, you're talking about
Coppola's wife. Oh, I thought you were asking about Caesar's.
No, she died. She died this year, so they would have already shot all
April,
that stuff.
I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that might have not actually affected this line, but it's interesting. I mean,
yeah, it's more just he reflected on it after. I wonder if in Caesar's case, I've never loved anyone like you. It might be a time and place thing where he didn't have this. He didn't have. I mean, his previous wife's death is what led to the creation of Megalon, and that's what led to this major vision for the future, Megalopolis. Maybe it's just a time and place thing where he's been in love before, but now he's in love while simultaneously trying to make this amazing thing, and she's a part of that. So that's what he means. I've never loved anybody the way I love you because of the utility of that love at this moment.
All right, next, Claudio starts to find some power. He's with his friend. I guess I was about to say Lyle.
Huey, possibly?
Huey. With Huey.
You think it might be Huey?
Yeah.
Let's call him Huey. Claudio's with Huey. They find a mob who's gathered around their homes that they're losing because of Caesar's building project. And he explains to Huey, this is where power resides. They hand out hundreds to the crowd as they rile them up, taking charge of them.
Yeah, there's something. This is where, anytime you're with Shia LaBeouf, and especially when you're primarily with him and there's no Adam Driver or anybody else in the scene, the movie feels like pure satire.
Yeah.
And finding an angry mob, throwing a few hundreds at them, and then saying nothing. I see you, power to the people. And suddenly they're all on your side and you're in charge. It's humorous. It's ridiculous. But I do find, to some extent, it might be counterproductive to what Coppola's trying to do, because I feel like that mob is who he's trying to reach. It's the average film goer. Like, that's the general public, and you're making us look stupid.
And then he makes them out to be like Trump people toward the end of the movie.
That's
And I'm
true.
like,
Well,
oh,
so-
well, okay.
Yeah. And also, like, part of the message of the movie, he has some lines explicitly about this, which is like, anybody can change the world. You know, every person needs to take part in this debate, every average person. And yet, like, I don't know, the average person is a mob, like part of a mob. And I get part of the message is to not be a part of the mob. But, like, also the whole world has changed because of Caesar, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess
and it's the only time we're actually seeing these people who actually live in the city. We're only with like the elites and whatnot. So yeah, it is weird that like they're the everyday people who, you know, Caesar's trying to like build all this shit for are kind of treated like bad guys for a lot of the movie. That was a little bizarre.
Yeah, you would think he detests the average person.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's wrong that you can have a mob mentality and you're led astray, but it just, by trying to be satirical and exaggerating it and making it look so easy for Shia LaBeouf to manipulate them, it really, you don't get the message like, don't be a part of the mob. You just get, the message is that you are an idiot. You're so easily drawn in one direction or another.
And by the way, in the next scene, Cicero meets with the police commissioner, who warns of Claudio's rise to power. Which, by the way, it's happening quick. And he says, like, he's some kind of genius, right? That he can rile up the crowd and doctor videos. And, like, I don't know, it didn't look that hard.
Yeah.
Right.
It looked pretty easy.
Yeah,
And-
it just,
and-
when you're with them, it's purely a comedy when you're on this side of the movie.
Yeah, and the commissioner asked for permission to, like, go fix things. And Cicero gives permission.
Yeah, and this is Dustin Hoffman, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think he's the
And then-
commissioner.
And then we see what the results of him fixing things are way later.
Yeah, he doesn't fix things and gets killed.
Yeah. They kind of gloss over it, and I guess at one point,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we should probably mention what happened to him.
It just cuts to a 2-second flashback of a building collapsing on him.
Oh!
Do you think Dustin Hoffman, like, quit or something, so they had to, like, splice together some footage
I mean, with this
to
movie,
explain what happened?
wouldn't be surprised. Okay, this is all the stuff I want to compare the movie to the novelization, and I'm like, this is going to be what they were trying to do, and then this is what ended up on screen. We'll see.
Or just compare it to the screenplay. Like, what was actually
Well,
written.
I don't know if I'll get the screenplay, but
Yeah. Next, the satellite strikes. So Cicero is informed that the satellite is not coming down over Labrador, which is Canada, so who cares? Or, you know, it's like a rural area. Instead, it's unexpectedly coming down over New Rome. Although they don't really say that. They just say we don't know when or where it's hitting, but it just that immediately hits New Rome.
Well, and it's all shot like a Wes Anderson scene, which makes sense because it's Jason Schwartzman. But the dialogue, you know that satellite that's falling over Labrador? Yeah? Well, it isn't. That's not good. Yes, I know. Like it's this whole scene is it's comedy. Like I don't know why it's comedy.
I do love the shot of the satellite crashing and how you just see the reflection of people on the buildings. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that to me was on the level of those statues. Like, you could remove it from the context of this movie, and it would look great on its own. You see people's like silhouettes, waiting for this disaster from the sky, all projected onto these red buildings. But when the satellite actually hits, it's very clunky. You don't see any real destruction. There's no buildings destroyed. You just hear like a poof, and the streets like fill with smoke. So from that point forward, it took me a while to realize what actually happened, because you don't really see any destruction. I was like, did New Rome just get wiped out? Adam was sitting next to me, our other brother, and he whispers to me at one point, like, wait, I thought the world ended, because it's like a nuclear satellite. But eventually what you realize is that it took out a chunk of the city, which now creates a space where Megalopolis can be built.
Yeah, and we see this huge crater in the city, and Caesar describes that trend is not destiny. We can save humanity. Together we'll discover new paths that lead to the unknown world ahead of us. And he continues his work on Megalopolis.
That's all an amalgamation of those two phrases, like leap into the unknown, forget the shape of an object, the trend, build it from a cellular level. So you do see it all starts to connect. See, it's a good movie, Tony.
It's a great movie. Okay. I think I went to the bathroom at this part, but yes, it's a great movie.
And by the way, this was also when we had that cut to the press conference thing.
Yes, I
Caesar's
did
saying-
go to the bathroom at this part because this part kind of leaked on Twitter. So I'm like, I know what he says. And I went to the bathroom.
Smart. But the main thing from that is he says we have an obligation to ask, is this way we're living the only one that is available to us? When there's a dialogue, that basically is a utopia.
Well,
Hear
let's-
that, Gil? This podcast, us having a dialogue, this is utopia.
This feels
This
like
is
utopia.
utopia. Play this to all your friends and family, and they'll be like, this is utopia right here. Just 3 dudes talking about a stupid fucking movie.
Well, we should paint more of a picture because there might be people who are curious, like, wait, what was the live component? What did it look like? So basically, the satellite crashes, screen goes black, you see some of the lights turn on, a guy walks down to the screen, pulls out a microphone, and then Catalina, Caesar's on screen. And like you said, Tony, most of the screen is black at this point. He's just like a little window at the bottom, like you just opened up a Zoom call or something. And the guy with the mic, presumably an employee at the theater, I guess, he says, Mr. Catalina, you said that as we jump into the future, we should do so unafraid. But what if when we do jump to the future, there is something to be afraid of? And then he goes into everything Daniel was saying. Nothing to be afraid of if you love. We have an obligation to ask each other if we like society as it is it our only option? And then when we have that dialogue and we're asking those questions, it is utopia. Which I think says there's no such thing as a perfect society. But the best society is one where we are all collaborating toward something positive. So once you're doing that and you're on the right trend, that's utopia. Like that's the best we can do. And love conquers all also.
Yes, obviously.
And Megalon, not steel.
Yes.
That's right. Steel.
Not steel, or concrete. The only thing that will help us is the giant cockroach from Godzilla.
That's right.
Which I'm working on in my basement.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Caesar's at his desk, using his power over time to replay the past for himself. We hear his wife come home saying, I have good news, which it turns out will be that she's pregnant with twins.
Yeah.
But she sees lipstick on a cigarette and thinks he's being unfaithful. Again, seemingly. She rushes away in the car, and that's when the accident happens. He cries to Julia, and she wonders about him, man of the future, so obsessed by the past. She then reveals she's pregnant. He's ecstatic and asks that they marry. But she says they can't get married because Caesar's in a moral pickle. I love that phrase. Because he still feels like he's married.
What was the lipstick thing again? Did that get figured out?
I assume he was cheating on his wife. I mean, he never said he wasn't. I don't know.
Was it with WoW Platinum?
Could be. Which I guess, well, and then that would explain why he says, I love you like I've never loved anybody before. Maybe he wasn't very faithful to his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. The movie
one
doesn't
book.
really give us a whole lot on that. So
Yeah, it really doesn't. It really
what more can
doesn't.
I say besides seems like he was kind of a jerk?
So next we see some Megalopolis. Caesar shows off a Megalopolis exhibit, which is also like where he and Julia live. And they show it off to Cicero and his wife. His wife embraces it, is having fun with it. But Cicero is not cool with this whole Megalon
He won't
thing,
get
so-
on that walkway. You couldn't pay him to get on that goddamn moving walkway. They basically just have one of those walkways at like the airport when you don't feel like walking.
Yeah.
And they're like,
But this one's cooler.
It's
They're
glowy.
like, this will fix society because it's made of
Yeah.
lights. I'm like, yeah, well,
Imagine if our mayor was like, you guys know all those issues we have in the city, like the crime and poverty and stuff. Check out this glowing treadmill. Huh? What do you guys think?
There was a
speaking
Seinfeld
of your
episode.
mayor with crime, how's that going for you guys over there? Isn't he having a little bit of an issue with that right now?
We're not living in Megalopolis right now. Let me say that. Did you
Say the
ever
least.
see Joker? You know how there's a garbage strike and the
Yeah.
whole city's decaying?
No.
I would say it's closer to that. Wasn't there a Seinfeld episode where they had a conversation about how they should put walkways, like from the airport, all
Yeah.
over the city?
Yeah.
That's-
But then you would still have people like, because you're supposed to technically walk on those. You're not supposed to just sit there
Well,
and you have the
it's
guy
split. On the right side, you can just stand. On the
I
left
guess
side,
so.
you're supposed to walk.
You still get an asshole with like 3 bags that just
Absolutely.
like takes up the whole spot. So yeah.
Do you know how I remembered that etiquette of standing on the right, walking on the left? Is there's an episode of Futurama where they're on a conveyor belt and there's like a group of aliens that are annoyingly standing throughout it and won't let people by. And then you hear on the loudspeaker, "Stand to the right to allow faster pilgrims by." That like plays in my head when I get stuck on a treadmill. All right.
But yeah, Megalopolis looks stupid. I'm sorry. It just looks stupid.
I still don't get it. I'm kind of confused. I still don't really get what Megalopolis
We're
is.
inside a fleshy looking flower building. Isn't this great? And I'm like, nah, it kind of looks gross, to be honest.
Yeah, it seems like the utopia is twofold. One, because it's all made of Megalon, I assume it's very cheap to build and essentially builds itself. And it somehow grows as necessary. As your family expands, it grows. That's the Megalon side of it. And I assume it's like cheap energy. I mean, those walkways, you stand on it and it moves you. Doesn't feel like there's a conveyor belt there. It feels like somehow it's a property of Megalon. So you're not powering that in any way.
We'll see later, though, that he's draining power from the rest of the city.
That is true. That is true.
All right.
He's supposed to be like the hero and stuff, but he is doing some real shady shit.
Yeah, and as we're talking, I'm finding out that he cheated on his wife. I'm learning a lot during this recap. I think the other aspect of the city, Megalon aside, it's just designed efficiently. Like, every family will have a garden, so that will make people happier. And then presumably you're growing some crops you can actually eat, and that's where some of the food is coming from. So it's supposed to be just an efficiently designed city, and then Megalon makes everything cheaper and more efficient somehow.
Over card games in Caesar and Julia's home, they debate the meaning of utopia. Caesar rejects the purpose of utopia, saying, they don't offer ready-made solutions. Also, utopias turn into dystopias. Caesar argues utopias aren't meant to give solutions. They're meant to ask the right questions. He also claims that we don't need to accept our modern-day endless conflict because human friendliness was central to our evolution. When Julia is pulled into the debate, she offers several quotes by Marcus Aurelius, at first seemingly siding with her father, but then more so siding with what's his name? With Caesar.
Cataline.
Then Julia announces that she's pregnant. Her mother's joyous, but Caesar is shocked. Cicero is shocked and betrayed and storms out.
Yeah, he's not a fan.
No, he's not happy. I feel like this whole conversation is... They don't get very far into the conversation. No. It's partly Francis Ford Coppola saying, here's an example of what I want you to do every New Year's, is have this conversation.
And which we, all three of us, will have at our Megalopolis.
We've committed to that.
Yes, we've committed to it.
There's also some of, there's a lot of cynicism today. People tend to focus on the most negative aspects possible of humanity. Yeah. So here he's trying to give a reframing that actually cooperation between people is what got us where we are today. So fundamentally, we're good. Like that poem earlier, the thing that survives, even if a lot of stuff falls, is that poem about love. So we might take a step back, but we're always taking 2 steps forward.
I really did enjoy this whole debate between them. It was like one of the good conversations in the film. I wish they weren't in a weird flesh flower while they were having the conversation. But I was like, wow, I actually really like this scene. And I'm looking at like the 4 other people in the theater. I'm like, I wonder if any of them are paying attention.
Well, if all 4 of them went home and had this conversation with 4 people each.
Yeah.
And then those people and so on and so forth.
And you know what? I'm going to invite them all to our New Year's Megalopolis party.
It does feel like it would be near impossible to genuinely have a conversation like this. Would be very difficult.
Yeah. Well, and even the one that Cicero and Caesar had was not really very productive, I didn't think. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't really land on what the answer was. It just kind of was like, oh, by the way, we're having a baby. What? And that was it.
Oh, and we also found out that if the baby is a girl, it'll be named Sunny Hope, which I think is Caesar's dead wife's name.
Yeah. Her name is definitely Sunny something, yeah.
And if
But
it's a
what is it-
boy,
Okay.
Francis after Francis Ford Coppola, or after Cicero, Franklin Cicero.
I will
Yeah.
say there was one person in my theater when those names got brought up. It was like Francis or Sunny Hope. Just one person in the theater went, ha ha ha, like just started laughing because there's such a fucking difference between the two names.
Yeah, our theater, it was a packed theater, I think, because it was the ultimate experience. It was an almost sold out show. It was full of laughs at that point. I said you could break down where the names come from. Like for a second, I forgot. In my
Yeah.
mind, it's Cicero. I forgot his name is Francis. So I was like,
Yeah.
how do you go from Sunny Hope to Francis? And it cracked everybody up. And then you remember, okay, I see what you're doing.
Yeah. It's hard to remember a lot of things. You know, some people are only going to watch this movie once, guys. They're not going to see it 3 times in theaters.
Next, Claudio continues his rise to power. We hear the narrator say, "It was a time of excess and greed. No one was satisfied with the Senate, and practically everyone contemplated the idea of change with pleasure." And of course, Claudio is capitalizing on this need for change. He's amassed a big crowd of supporters. He appears to be saying Heil to each of the news stations.
He's standing on
hail?
a swastika.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I think it's his friend who's standing on it. But yeah, it's a tree stump that's carved in the shape of a swastika. He is saying Heil, right?
Yeah,
I feel like he did.
I'm
Yeah.
fairly certain, yeah.
Okay. His sister describes him, a little crazy, no boundaries, and he's an entertainer. That's what makes for a good politician.
Well, that scene got laughs too. It kind of felt like she's just saying she's parroting what she heard. She's like, he's a politician. Politicians have to be entertaining. Like she has no idea what she's talking about. She's just repeating it.
It's also his sister randomly saying it to his other sisters. Is like, this is the first time they're discussing like whether their brother is a good politician.
Yeah. And again, the way he's acting and everything going on, I'm just like, all right, I feel like I know when Francis wrote these scenes. Yep. I think I know what year this was written.
Yes, the Reagan era. And so, by the way, this is the scene where we learn that apparently they killed, I think, the police commissioner, Dustin Hoffman, because he tried to muscle him out of just a quick dialogue and a flashback.
Yeah.
Because they made a statue for him.
Yeah.
And they're like, remember when we killed that guy?
Which I was sad about. I like Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
One person in the crowd cheers for Caesar Catalina, angering Claudio. Then Claudio, I don't know if any of you understood this line. Claudio says, "Will no one something my cousin? Will no one something my cousin?" He just says that a few times.
I think
couldn't hear what he was saying.
I think he said, "Will no one relieve me of my cousin?" I think.
That would make
I
sense.
think.
And then Claudio's friend, Huey, seems thoughtful at that moment. And I think that's where he decides to assassinate Caesar. Because that's, he did the same thing to Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah. Bunch of assassins going after each other.
Are there other assassinations?
Well, because what's his face? Dustin Hoffman was going to assassinate Claudio, I believe, and
I don't know
somehow
if
they
he's going to assassinate him. Maybe.
Well, he
I
told
was
him to
imagining
take care of it,
threatening.
and I feel
Yeah.
like take care of it means I'll take care of it. But somehow I guess they got the drop on him first. So
Literally, the drop
Yes.
building on him.
yeah, and then there's another upcoming assassination. So
we have a late night meeting between Caesar and Cicero. Cicero asks Caesar to leave Julia. In exchange, he offers Caesar support for Megalopolis, which evidently he needs. I think that conflict hasn't been like resurfaced in a while, but he needs Cicero's support for Megalopolis. As an insurance policy, he gives Caesar a signed confession in a red envelope in which he explains that he hid Caesar's dead wife's body in order to dishonestly support his prosecution of Caesar. Which, by the way, I mean, just so unforgivable. Like a
that's
really,
pretty
really
fucked.
bad thing to do.
yeah,
He gives Caesar 3 days to mull this decision over, and Caesar says to him, "There are only 2 things impossible to stare at very long: the sun and your own soul."
yep.
I'll say this scene overall, just the tonal whiplash of this movie. This felt like a very quiet, grounded, emotional scene. I need you to stay away from my daughter, who you love.
Yeah.
Very dark. Just felt weird. This felt like tonally on its own little island.
Also, like, so he knew Caesar was like innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I mean-
Yes. Legally innocent.
But not morally.
Yeah, but not morally.
Oh, okay.
Use that
Yeah.
line
All
at one
right.
point.
Never mind. Because I'm gonna be like, well, then what's the whole deal with the fucking guy if you knew he was technically innocent?
Also, wait, so Cicero hid the body. Like that dead body of Caesar's wife was proclaimed Jane Doe. Which, first of all, like that's hard to pull off. Like Caesar was there, saw his wife die. Actually, I think tried to rescue her. So at some point the body gets like mishandled. And then Cicero claims the body miraculously goes missing, right? But then they also try to charge Caesar of poisoning. Like, I don't understand how any of this played out in the trial, but I guess obviously he didn't successfully convict him. But
Yeah.
it feels like Cicero really, bungled a lot of this.
Yeah. Francis Ford Coppola maybe needed one more pass on the script. I don't know. That's just me. It's just me. Help simplify a lot of these things.
Caesar and Wow have a meeting. Wow offers to Caesar that she can still be his, and she'll steal Crassus's bank for him. Caesar responds, "Wow," which is a pun.
And she's like, what?
Yeah, and he walks away.
I do like that she was out there purposely without a jacket to force him to give her
Yeah.
his jacket.
Which, by the way, the jacket just gets left on the ground and run over, which
Yeah,
is
she
sad
drops it.
because it was a nice jacket.
And again, speaking of visuals, it's weird to see people wearing like Roman attire and then just seeing Adam Driver in a beanie. This is clashing with me.
And this is also some of that clunky narrative we talked about earlier, where what is WoW Platinum's plan? Why is this the moment to come back out and approach Caesar and try to get back with him? I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
part of it feels like we're getting toward the end of the movie, and this is what sets off the rest of the movie. Because she tried plan A, go to Caesar, that didn't work.
Yeah.
So cut to Wow manipulating Crassus and seemingly like in a cauldron or something with her face spinning around. She goes, "You want me to take over? You want me to take over the bank?" And then Hamilton's like, "Yes." And then she says, "I'll start with Caesar's account." So she gets control of Caesar's bank account.
Yeah, there's definitely implications all of a sudden of actual hypnosis at work. Like later when she runs into Caesar himself and he reveals his like megalon eye, it's like he's trying to hypnotize her and she's trying to hypnotize him with a necklace.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
she's doing the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And she's like, love me, love me. And he's like, wow.
We see some cool video clips. It's sex, drugs, and Megalon. Megalon is sweeping the nation, but is it safe? Who knows? It wasn't exactly that, but it was like stuff like that.
They never explained how it was unsafe.
Well, it's just people are afraid of the future. I mean, that's
guess
how I
so.
interpret it, though. It is like, people trust steel and whatever. They're scared of this new thing.
I
or
guess
it's the
so.
powers that be are threatened by it.
Yeah.
Right. We do never see any indication that there's any negative to Megalon, which is probably another place where people bump up against this movie of like, again, it's easy to say, let's not be afraid of the future in this reality you've crafted where someone can come out with a miracle substance and there's no downside. If you're against it, you're just being stupid and scared.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
They're at the Megalon construction site where there's like some stuff going on, like a car's there that's not supposed to be, and you start to get a feeling of something is off.
Oh, I knew exactly what was going to happen at the scene.
So did I. I wasn't
Yeah.
surprised at all. So Caesar's sitting in the car. A young boy comes up for an autograph. As Caesar hands the autograph back to the boy says, "Thank you," and then shoots Caesar in the head.
I would say like
the whole side of his head off. It's gross.
Oh yeah, you see like there's a cool detail where he's holding up a book and he shoots him through the book.
Yeah.
and it falls on the ground, and you see like a bloody bullet hole, and it's like still a little bit on fire. I think from this point forward, I'm almost fully on board with the movie, because I feel like here is where there's now a narrative. It's moving forward. It's tonally weird, but at least not entirely, but mostly consistent, with like one glaring omission. I'd say like when he's giving the speech and it actually gets to the ending, becomes clunky again. But for a little bit, there's just a very clear narrative through line. He has this like near-death experience right now when he gets shot. And it's a very cool, visually striking sequence. You see like a young Talia Shire like walking toward the screen. I guess he's like thinking back on life and time. You see his wife at the bottom of the ocean, and she was pregnant with twins apparently. And then all of a sudden, like the two embryos turn into the heads of these rock people who stand up. It's just like a very experimental, and again, one of those things where you could take it out of the movie on its own. And it's like, this is just an interesting like visual poetry to look at.
Yeah. I like this whole sequence. And like you said, they're using the Megalon to regrow his head. They hinted earlier, they're like, oh, wow, we made a little cast for this dog, but eventually it'll merge with the dog. And I'm like, wow, we took a jump from cast to head growing back. That seems like a lot.
It worked on a puppy's foot. Let's try it on Adam Driver's brain.
Try it on his fucking head.
Wait, and by the way, at some point during that surgery, which like Julia is like involved in, she says like, oh, we managed to find some of Sunny Hope's hair, which is needed for it.
Yeah.
I was really trying to figure that out.
They constantly say that he got like Megalon from her.
Yes,
or something?
somehow. And it had something to do with the babies and the rock people.
Yeah. It's a little
That's
confusing.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says, I was desperate. As he's describing him like trying to save her, I discovered the principle of Megalon trying to save her life. During that sequence, we see him following like a ghost or spirit like into an old building.
Yeah, I think that's his wife, right?
And then he like sees her in like some old building, and then he says, be with her, and their faces like blow up in light. I don't know, like visually really cool. I don't know. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to get more out of it than like,
well, I think like, be with her is his wife telling him, be with Julia. Like, you are free to move on. And then you see her ghost form kind of fly away. Like, that's her moving on. In this whole area, it just felt like, I guess it's one concept of what this place between life and death can look like. And I love the fact that his wife, she's the classic ghost, like with a tail and everything. Yeah. It looked really cool. Like, I love this whole sequence. At one point, Caesar pulls out his heart and he's like, this is my heart, and holds it out.
Another cool line that I loved is like during that montage, Caesar is yelling repeatedly, I will not let time have dominion over my thoughts. And I just found that really motivating. Like, I'm going to yell that to myself during the day. You know, like if time's slipping by, I will not let time have dominion over my thoughts.
Sir, you'll have to calm down. Well, I found it, I actually found it almost the opposite. I found it very like distressing because there's like a big fire behind him. I will not let time have dominion over my thoughts. To me, that felt like he's in his mind. It's on fire because he's dying. And it's like in his last moments of life, he's like, I want to get as much thinking done as I can before I die. But you can feel it surrounding him. So it's like motivating, but at least for a moment there, like that like shook me to my core. Just that idea of existing in that final moment of life.
Interesting.
Oof.
It was a cool
That's
montage.
horrifying.
It was really cool. It does make you feel a lot of things.
Yeah. And the whole time I'm just like, how's it growing his memories back from his brain? And I had a lot of logical questions about it.
Well, that's actually not that unrealistic because they've done very interesting surgeries where a person will lose like up to 50% of their brain and be incredibly functional afterward. There will be like weird things where they draw a triangle and they draw a circle, but they can talk and they remember not everything. They remember a lot of stuff, but the human brain is like shockingly resilient.
Yeah. But I feel like if most of it was blown, I don't know.
I'm not saying I think Adam Driver would have survived this. But
I don't think he would have.
But you're right. That's probably one of the more believable parts of this. We see Claudio and Huey together, where Huey is holding a mask of Claudio over his face, and then like reveals that it's himself. And then Claudio's angry. He says, like, why did you do this? You've made him a martyr. You're an ignoramus. And then Huey just yells, Sic semper tyrannis, thus always to tyrants, which is supposedly what Brutus said when he assassinated his friend, Julius Caesar.
And it's what John
and
Wilkes,
Lincoln.
John Wilkes Booth said to Lincoln,
And with that
and then
guy,
he jumped off this, and then he did a cool jump off the stage, and he broke his foot while running away. What a fucking idiot!
it happened in Seinfeld too. That guy,
And Crazy Joe Davola. Three
Crazy
very
Joe
famous
Davola.
things. Brutus, John Wilkes Booth, and Crazy Joe Davola.
Caesar is brought to Hamilton's apartment, screaming, no, 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 in like a lot of extremely distressing ways.
Yeah.
He's apparently there because his accounts are frozen. I wonder why his accounts were frozen after they were handed over to WoW. Claudio annoys and mocks Caesar. Caesar responds, creation, destruction. Creation, no, 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 no. I'm kind of laughing. I actually loved the no-no-nos were so distressing.
Is that like for a minute I'm like, oh, is this like an act? I'm like, or is it just like his brain is still like turning back on and
that's how I saw it. Like I felt like the way he had his hand on his head, like he looked like he was in such pain. And I could relate to him so much when he's there trying to deal with that. And then Claudio walks over and won't shut up. It's like, just leave me alone. Like Caesar doesn't even have the energy to like shout at him to go away. He's just like, I'm like growing my brain back. I have this like magic substance in my skull, and you're just like, hey, I was disappointed when I heard you got shot because I didn't get to shoot you myself.
And it's just like, yeah, that's nice. Get the fuck away from me. Ah!
When he took off the wrap while talking to WoW Platinum, and then you see his like Megalon eye, and it kind of goes into a double vision thing where you see like 6 of him. Our theater cracked up. Like comedy is subjective. Like there are definitely parts where I laughed, but people were belly laughing at this part. I didn't really get it. Yeah. Oh, you don't remember? Yeah, people were laughing so hard. Yeah.
Where they see like
that's
6
so
of them?
weird.
Yeah, I didn't think anything was funny about it.
Yeah.
I think what WoW's about to do is funny, but
So WoW at first is like bragging. She's like, I can make a lot of things happen on my own. In reference to, I guess, locking, but also unlocking his account. And then she tries to get back together with him, tries to hypnotize him with her necklace. When
she's
Hamilton
like on
interrupts,
her knees and everything. Yeah. But by the way, I don't know if I had a girlfriend and I walked in the room and she's like on her knees crying in front of a guy and then just got up and walked out, I wouldn't be like John Voight's like, wonder what her deal is. I'd be like, what the fuck just happened here? What's going on?
I don't think he has. I don't think he cares too much about WoW Platinum.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, Hamilton's just immediately like, oh yeah, let's like sort out Claudio's accounts. It's just so fun. I thought it was really funny. Like, what's her name? WoW thought that Caesar needed her. Like, obviously Hamilton could just unlock his account.
Well, like Hamilton is so on Caesar's side. Like he's always been a supporter of his. So like WoW shuts down Caesar's accounts, and then Hamilton finds out about it. He's like, oh yeah, let's get this all sorted out.
Yeah. And around this time, Hamilton's like unsure of Claudio. Like he thinks he's responsible for a lot of things.
Yeah.
So they're setting
it
that
also
up.
could be like WoW, did try to actually hypnotize Hamilton, and maybe it wasn't as effective as she thought. It's clearly pointing in that direction. At least at a couple points that she can do that.
The scene ends with WoW saying, "What's a 7-letter word for God's revenge on mankind?" Caesar responds, "I think Pandora." Then WoW says, "Bingo," and it cuts away.
Okay, Pandora's box.
That's what I think it's referencing.
Yeah, I guess by like rebuffing her repeatedly, he's opened Pandora's box, and now she's gonna go get. She's unleashing like the ultimate, like the worst possible plan. She's going nuclear now.
Okay.
Okay, we can go with that interpretation.
It's funny too though, because people don't normally talk about Pandora. Like even if you look up Pandora, there's kind of only articles about Pandora's box. Her box, way more famous than she is. Kind of like WoW Platinum. Sorry.
Whatever. I was talking about like nipples and whatnot. That one's good.
Gil, I think you can leave that in. I think
I was
it's
going to
funny.
say, tell me later if you want me to leave it in or not.
You think it's too inappropriate? I think it's it's funny.
I think
That's
it's
great.
compared to any other podcast on the internet, including Tony's.
Yeah.
I think it could not be more tame.
I'm okay with leaving it, I think. All right, we have the bank takeover. It's beginning.
Yes.
Claudia walks into the bank. We get the classic pick up my hat, so on and so forth. Julia goes up to the bank as well, and the elevator does the going up, and she says, yes, we are. We are
Wait,
going
you
up.
did it again. It's WoW Platinum.
Oh my God, I
you're
wrote
confusing
Julia
me so much.
everywhere.
I was
Sorry,
like, I don't remember this scene.
I wrote Julia everywhere.
They
for
don't
some
even
reason
look
here.
alike. That's
No,
why
there's
it's so
nothing
confusing.
similar. I should say
Somehow-
Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah, that's what I was doing in my notes. So I don't know how you keep forgetting the name. Wow.
WoW Platinum.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like,
in
I mean-
your world, Julia and WoW are comparable names that you can mix up.
So Julia Metal goes up.
WoW Platinum.
Okay, we do just need to focus on this line for a second. Going up? Yes, we are. We are going up, and they are going down. Something, something, something will tell all the little boys what to do. I love Aubrey Plaza's character.
Yeah. Yeah, she's definitely like in her own little bad guy villain movie.
Yeah.
Right there.
She seduces Claudia, which is like super easy to do, by the way,
Yes. She didn't have to try that hard at all.
and gets him to agree to a plan to steal the bank from Crassus. Should we go over the details of that plan? I have some stuff written here, but I'm a little confused.
She was gonna, because Claudio needs to prove himself, because his father, grandfather, uncle, I'm still confused.
That's his dad, right? Wait,
I
no, that
thought
makes
that
sense.
was-
Yeah, it's his dad.
The grandfather,
yeah. Because
it's
he
a
is
direct line.
Yeah, he is Caesar's cousin,
Yeah.
and they say Hamilton is Caesar's uncle.
Yeah. But I thought he referred to him as granddad.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyway,
It might be grandchildren.
he has to prove himself to this guy. And he knows that that's what Hamilton wants. So she tells him, like, hey, suggest that you'll be the interim CEO of the bank and you want to learn the business and everything. And then at some point, they will get rid of Hamilton and replace him with Shia LaBeouf, who will basically be a puppet for her, I think. Because she won't inherit the bank and she doesn't have an heir for him. So Claudio's kind of her only connection to the bank if what's his face dies.
Well, and it feels like when they put the papers in front of Hamilton that like it's going to make Claudio the interim CEO. He has a heart attack, I think.
Yeah.
Or a stroke, maybe?
A stroke. It could
Yeah.
be. I couldn't tell if like that was part of the plan.
Yeah.
It was like seduce him with the idea, Claudio, that you have turned a leaf
Yeah.
and you're shaping up. You're going to really work hard to become the heir. And then at the last moment, you spring this on him and it'll cause him to have a medical episode.
Yeah.
Because that also works, because then it makes him unable to continue to run the company and they start to take things away from him. So I don't know if it was like that was the plan or it worked out that way, but great. It kind of goes along with our plan anyway.
Yeah, it did seem coincidental, really.
Yeah. Well, and there's like a cool thing they do, which is some of his experimentation, where she's like counting the steps of the plan.
Yeah.
And so you see her counting like one in the foreground. And then as each thing happens, she'll pop up in the foreground again. And
It'll be like
two.
And she also does like a this thing during it or something. I liked it though. It was cool.
Well, so this is where I was saying the movie jumps all over the place with tone. But here, for a little while, we're in satire mode.
Yeah.
And I have found John Voight pretty funny throughout the movie, and he's in a lot of this. So this now is satire that is actually humorous, and I can see what it's making fun of.
Yeah.
Like Shia LaBeouf cuts his long hair, and all of a sudden John Voight's character is like, I'm real proud of you. You're clearly making an effort here. Like that's all it takes. It shows how surface level his focus is. So that stuff was all great, I thought.
We'll continue with the takeover in a second, but first, Julia and Caesar get married, seemingly inside of a car, I think. And it's officiated
I think it's supposed to be like it's a secret wedding, right? Because they're not actually supposed to be together.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
No.
Is it a secret from Cicero?
I think so, yeah.
And then what's the other significance I think of them getting married is, I guess, twofold. One, Caesar is rejecting Cicero's offer, right? He wants to stay with Julia, and he's going to find a way to make his megalopolis dream come true. And at the same time, it's, I guess, through his near-death experience. Yeah, well, we already saw that. He's gotten over the grieving process of his wife. His dead wife has given him permission to marry again.
Yeah, it feels kind of pointless to like scrutinize every detail of like the plot, because like some of it doesn't hold together, but it doesn't really feel like it's trying to. Like the offer that the mayor makes to Caesar, like leave my daughter alone, like what he's offering, it just doesn't feel like Caesar needs it at all, because he goes on and builds Megalopolis, no problem. It's hard to get. In any other movie, you would have a feel for the stakes, and you'd be like, there's a real dilemma here. I don't know what I should do. But here, it doesn't feel like there's any dilemma at all.
There's a dilemma going outside one of your windows right now with the police siren.
Is that me?
Thankfully, I think it's you, Daniel, which means I can just shut off your audio at that point.
Guys, it's that most wonderful time of the year. It's Saturnalia. We have a montage of Christmas and Hanukkah stuff.
Oh, right.
Let's go Saturnalia. They execute the takeover of the bank, and everyone's in cool Roman outfits.
Wait, what's Saturnalia? Is that a reference?
It was the Roman predecessor to like Christmas.
Okay. I feel like most people probably don't know that.
Saturnalia. Yeah, it was an ancient Roman holiday.
No, people love to bring up what Christian holidays used to be. Everyone knows it now. They love to do it.
I guess what I was saying is I didn't know that.
You know a lot about Christian holidays, Gil?
I know, weirdly. I don't know why.
So they execute the takeover of the bank. For some reason, it works. I'm not really sure why. I still don't get it. But like Hamilton had a stroke, so I guess he's incapacitated. And for some reason, the board decides to give the bank over to Claudio. And Wow. I don't know why Wow is a part of it, to be honest.
Well, I think the Claudio part, once you buy that, the fact that Wow is with him, she could probably get him to do whatever she wants.
Yeah. Okay.
So like put me in there. You get a whole montage here, right? Where the screen splits in three. This is more of his experimental filmmaking. And this is more stuff I really enjoyed. You see all these people in positions of power, Aubrey Plaza and Shia LaBeouf, and now they're really leaning hard into dressing like Roman leadership. But because of the split screen in the middle of it, you can have this like tepid Elvis impersonator performance, and it completely undercuts all of the people cosplaying as powerful figures. Yeah. So again, as a satire, which is what the movie is, at least for like 15 to 20 minutes here, works great.
And also I loved like, because we're so hung up on Roman stuff, but then like you see like all the citizens are like very Americana, like trying to like be like Elvis and the American flag. It's like it's taking over all the Roman stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the flag I think has like 13. It's still like the 13 colony flag. I was a little confusing.
I think they have multiple different flags.
Okay.
That's more of that improvising on set. Throw one of those in there. I don't know.
You know, it's like a poem. It's like a poem, really.
And now that Claudio has the bank, he issues his orders, unleash the mob. And basically he gets this huge mob of rioters, cars on fire, all this stuff. And they force Cicero and his wife and Julia and her child to flee to the underground subway until the rioters have been pushed back. And I think Claudio's actual plan at this point is, like, we have the money, we have we have the financial power now. Let's use the mob to actually go and seize control of the government, I think is what they're actually trying to do the coup right now, which is kind of interesting because it's not Cataline who is doing the coup, which is historically what happened, but rather Claudio.
And I do want to say, in the subway, this scene is now will be the most famous example of a obviously fake baby in a movie since American Sniper. The close-ups of the baby, obviously real baby, but like all the wide shots of like that baby couldn't be more still. It was like very obviously a doll. I haven't seen that since American Sniper, where apparently like a baby got sick, so they just had a doll and it was super obvious. Again, all that money on CGI, they couldn't like make it wiggle its head or a little bit or anything like that.
I did not notice. Gil, did you
All
notice
three
that?
times you
No,
didn't notice the
no.
fake baby?
Well, I was staring at Aubrey Plaza the whole time.
Well, when we have New Year's Eve together, I'm gonna point out the baby scene.
Well, I this is what we talked about on the John Wick podcast.
Yeah.
Is I just have a blind spot typically for like effects.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I get so engrossed in the story that I just miss those details.
Yeah. Maybe it's just because I babysit a lot and I know that kids are constantly like wiggling and moving around.
True.
And I was just like, oh, that baby is a statue.
Yeah, you know what an actual baby looks like.
The statues in this movie moved more than that baby did. Anyway, sorry, I had to bring up the fake baby.
Hamilton strikes back. We hear him say, America, the masters of the known world, is not kaput. So it might have looked like it's kaput, but it's not kaput. Claudio and Wow Platinum enter Hamilton's room. And they talk about Hamilton like he's incapacitated and stuff, but he's not.
Well, he's faking it right before they walk in. You see him like put on like a fake.
And he's wearing the Robin Hood outfit he was forced to wear earlier in the movie. And he's got a big boner.
So Hamilton, you messed up my joke. All right, Hamilton reveals his giant hard arrow hidden underneath his sheets.
That's not really it. You just took the movie's joke and like rephrased it.
Yeah, but it's funny that I said it still in the tenor of the joke.
We never see him put arrows into the bow and arrow. It's just he'll shoot an arrow. We see someone get hit. It cuts back. There's already another arrow in the bow.
And the way he does it, it's like so, like that arrow would not move with enough speed to like pierce through someone's chest into their heart.
Yeah, he straight up kills Val Platinum. Goes
so easily, right? Just like
yeah.
That was a Megalon arrow. Okay.
Oh, there you go. In this like 20-minute sequence where the movie's pure comedy, it's funny. It's a great scene.
I had a good time with this whole sequence here. And Claudio gets one in the ass. He gets two in the ass.
Two.
And he's got to get them pulled out.
Which, by the way, that was crazy. His friend just yanks him out. An arrowhead? It like implants it. You don't just yank it out. That's
you're supposed to leave that in and go to a hospital, and they gotta like surgically remove it.
Yeah, these are details.
Yank out arrows.
If it was a Megalon arrow, it's probably like healing.
Right.
I
don't think it's healing Aubrey Plaza.
No, she looked pretty dead.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's getting the same treatment as Caesar's previous. Nobody's like, I was inspired by Platinum to create Megalon.
Also, that is a little weird because it's like, wait, can Megalon just regrow any cell so everyone would live forever?
Well, did you get the feeling that he didn't actually die and then get resurrected? Like he was on life support, like on the brink.
Maybe. I mean, his brain did splatter. I don't know how you... Well, I know strange things have happened, but he seemed pretty dead.
I don't know, Tony. The human brain is quite resilient, Tony.
It's time for Caesar's big speech, the one that has been just echoing in my head for days. So I wouldn't stop repeating it this morning while we were preparing for this recording. As we see Megalopolis, the narrator says, "The gods have decreed that history teaches. All that is needed is a slight push to send our republic toppling. For it is in the power of any daring man to overturn a sickly commonwealth." Which I think that's Claudio, toppling the republic. But also, I think equally somebody can restabilize the republic, and hopefully that's Caesar. Caesar gives a speech about man, about time, consciousness, and courage. What is courage? It's the beginning of a conversation. We're in need of a great debate about the future.
Yes, we are in need of it. We're in need of a
sound
great debate.
Oh, wait. Hold on.
I'm sorry, but I love this speech, and I love that line. We are in need of a great debate about the future.
He was actually repeating it over and
Yeah,
over
I
while we were
would've
waiting
shut
for
up.
you to join earlier. I like the speech. I like Adam Driver's delivery too. Like he does this thing where he's speaking very theatrically, but then will suddenly speak very quietly, like he's thinking to himself. Like, what is time but a curve that bends around consciousness? Like, I don't know, the way he delivers it's very interesting. Like, it's a different key. But I just don't think the speech reaches anybody, unfortunately, because by the time you get to this point, a lot of people have left the theater. And it also just comes off as really cheesy the way as he's talking, this angry mob, suddenly their faces change and they're so moved by it. And it's no part of you buys into the reality that somebody would be inspired by this speech. And none of it emotionally lands, because if this were a triumphant moment where he overcame the odds to finally open the gates of Megalopolis, there would be much more feeling. And that's what I think you need for a successful message or meaning in a movie. It's not just idea, because ideas can just come through a conversation. It's idea plus emotion. That's what makes it stick in your mind and gets you to think about it after the movie's done. But if you were to take this scene, clip it out on its own, I think it's well executed. I do like it. Some of it's replayed in my mind since, but that's because I've really worked with the movie. Like I said, I've given it benefit of the doubt. I've thought about it more than I would if it were made by somebody else and if I didn't know the whole backstory behind it. So I like it, just in the context of this movie. Overall, I don't think it holds together.
I think that's totally right.
I dug it.
By the way, while Caesar is giving his speech, Cicero tries to interrupt at one point, giving his own speech, which is the usual Cicero thing, which is him sort of grandstanding against Claudio. But he gives way to Caesar, and I think that's a tenor change, right? Which is, all right, we're not going to keep doing the same back and forth as before. We're actually now going to look towards the future.
Yeah.
And at one point, Jason Schwartzman's character, he's incriminating himself. Which I guess the implication is that he's been building Megalopolis in secret, and he's giving away that he built it. I didn't really get that line.
I'm not sure. One hypothesis is like right after he says that, Caesar continues the part of his speech where he says, tear down debt, tear down the slums, which is like tearing down the whole existing order. Cataline was accused of that. He was accused of trying to get rid of debt, which was obviously a major threat to all the aristocrats who owned all this debt. And I think that could very clearly be considered like a crime against, the elites, against the state.
Okay.
But that line did seem a little strange at this part of the movie.
And around here is when Claudio's mob turns on him, right?
Yes. The mob turns on him. They consider him a traitor because he took over the bank.
Yeah.
Didn't really land for me. That was a little confusing because, I don't know, he could have easily spun it as I stole the bank for you guys, right? We're all taking over.
Were they also being moved by Caesar's speech at that point? So they were turning on Claudio?
I don't know.
That's the broad stroke I took away.
But Caesar's speech was meant to have the mob go after Claudio. I guess that could be a result of it, sure.
No, I don't think it was meant for that, but...
Yeah.
It's like you were trying to screw us, Claudio. This guy's the real deal.
One other historical tidbit that I loved is when Cicero is trying to give his speech, he's wearing a military helmet. So that's a reference. Cicero showed up to the Senate for one of his speeches, against Cataline at one point, in military garb, but underneath his regular toga. And it was to make a statement of we're at war, we're in a state of emergency. And one historian likened it saying it was such a ridiculous thing for Cicero to do. It's as if a senator in modern day America showed up with a military helmet and an AK-47 around his chest.
It made me think in the moment of in Breaking Bad. There's at one point where Saul Goodman's panicking and he runs to Walt, and Walt's like, "Are you wearing a bulletproof vest?" He's coming just so over prepared.
All right, it's time for the end of the movie. Let's see. They're entering Megalopolis. Cicero and his wife get onto the Megalon treadmill thing, entering the city. They're all then on a stage celebrating in front of cheering crowds. Everybody's there, even Caesar's mom. She's pretty nice. She's there to support
and she's
Caesar.
happy now.
Mm-hmm.
The baby is there. It's a real baby again.
Wait, that was a real baby? I thought that was...
And the way it ends is, Caesar says there's still so much to accomplish, but is there time? And then Cicero asks, and I'm still not sure I heard this line right, promise me you will build nobly?
I think that's what he said, yeah.
Okay. And Julia complies, says, yes, daddy. And Caesar says, oh, yes, be assured. Build a future for her, referring to the baby. Then they freeze time, but it zooms in on the baby, and it's only the baby that's moving.
I assumed the baby was the one who froze time.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Because did they say time stop again?
Julia says it this time.
Yeah, so she at least did try to initiate the time stop.
Yeah, but her and him are frozen. Just the baby's moving. So I think the baby did it.
I know you're not supposed to focus on this, but to me, I couldn't help but think, oh, shoot, like the universe is doomed, right?
Yeah, that's the problem, is that you're trying to sell a metaphor, but the feeling that I leave with is totally in conflict with what you're trying to say. Yeah. Because, I'm not supposed to overthink it, but this is the image you leave me with. A bunch of frozen people, a baby alone, moving, no one to take care of him. And then the screen zooms in. It does this effect a few times where black will fill in the screen until it's a pinhole, and it's focused on the baby. And I'm like, it's a baby alone, crying, floating in an abyss. So I'm unsettled, but it's meant to be very positive. I think what he's trying to say is the future. We're building for the future. So we're all going to be frozen. Here's the thing that matters, the future. But it's not what I'm feeling at all.
Instead, I'm just does that baby know how to turn off the power? Is it going to starve? Is everyone just going to be frozen for all eternity?
And this poor baby, I guess maybe if the baby, can do whatever it wants, but it's unaffected by time, I guess it might not age. And so you just have this consciousness that's not developed, that's just in limbo for eternity.
Yeah.
It's hard to avoid that.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
It's like White Christmas, that
Black Mirror
episode. Yeah.
It's
with these,
worse.
AIs.
This is worse than if a cloud grabbed the moon. Even more terrifying.
The other thing I didn't mention is it ends on a revised Pledge of Allegiance, where you're pledging allegiance to the whole human family, rather than just, the United
I'll say,
States.
if you're not bought into the movie, and then it goes, I pledge allegiance to humanity on behalf of the earth, it's just, you're just rolling your eyes so hard. This movie thinks it's so important.
That's a real hippie thing at the end there.
It didn't work. It did not work for me. And this is one of the things where thematically, I just disagree with Francis Ford Coppola, where he says this in a lot of things, you're my cousin, we're all related, we should all look out for each other. And it's look, the issue is I agree with the idea that we can work together and build a good future, but that's not inherent in the fact that we're humans. Some humans adopt very bad ideas and they become enemies of a good future. Is there's a reason to pledge allegiance to the United States as opposed to certain other countries.
But don't you think to some extent he's talking to those people? If those people thought, you're my cousin, we're all a family, we're all working together.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, you're right. And
I mean, they're not going to hear this.
I mean, this movie kind of proves that cousins will still go after each other.
It did feel unfair that WoW Platinum just gets killed, and Shia LaBeouf, he's not doing great. He's strung up and bleeding out and hanging upside down, but he's not necessarily dead. His fate is left ambiguous. That felt a little unfair. Oh, we also do see, don't we end on a little kind of sweep through Megalopolis? We see what it looks like. They have those balls from Jurassic World where you can zoom around the city.
Those things all over the place. Oh, we forgot Hamilton was I'll be remembered as the, what does he say he's going to be remembered as?
Daniel?
The kind or the merciful.
But Hamilton said?
He will be, Hamilton says he will be known as Crassus the Generous. Because he donates all of his money and everything to Caesar's Garden of Eden.
I guess, Daniel, you finished recapping. I'm going to take it back now. The Megalon is mine. So, we've talked a lot about this movie at this point. I knew this was going to be a big one. Tony, that's why we brought you on. I knew we were going to need help digesting this complicated film. I feel like I've said everything I have to say about this movie. I could see myself revisiting it, at least clips of it again in the future. Some of those moments we mentioned that were pretty striking. But any last tidbits, Tony, that you want to say that you didn't get to say earlier?
I mean, I always like when a director takes a risk. I like that he funded this himself and he tried to do something different. We live in a world where there's a lot of movies that are pretty much the same. Although I feel like now they're getting a little bit more experimental, but they're usually not big budget. So it's rare that we get a big budget, like experimental film that doesn't feel like anything else. So I would say definitely see it. I would say see it in the theaters, but it doesn't look like it's going to be an option much longer. So I would definitely DM Gil, ask where his house is, and then watch it all with us on New Year's Eve. But yeah, it definitely is once in a lifetime experience. Definitely check it out. It didn't really land for me, but I wasn't upset by it.
Well, the
So I
funny
would
thing
watch
is,
it
when
again.
we started, I think you said you suspect you liked it the most out of all three of us.
Yeah, I didn't expect your brother to be like the fucking megalopolis maniac over here.
A megalomaniac.
Are you gonna get a megalopolis tattoo? Like,
Already have.
It'll be Adam Driver holding the thing.
does
right
he ever
near his
even
chest.
do that in the movie, or was
He
that
does.
just for the?
He does.
Okay.
Yeah, during one of the
I
montages, he stands
Oh,
up, it
okay.
like glows. Yeah.
I just want to at our party. You're gonna be like, "Hey, check out my back." It's just Adam.
At our annual megalopolis party.
I'll have to. I'm gonna have to get Adam Driver tattooed over my tattoo of the maze of the prison that I used to be in.
Prison Break reference.
I don't know why.
Yeah, our annual megalopalooza.
Megalopolis. I'm
So-
excited for it.
I still love the movie. I think like when you scrutinize every scene, definitely I end up having more complaints because a lot of our complaints are about sort of the way certain things don't fit together and then issues with the narrative, with the plot. But like I still loved it because like I definitely have a lot of criticisms, but it's like I enjoyed watching this multiple times and I would gladly watch it again. And maybe part of it is like it's sticking with me more because I've scrutinized it so much. Like I remember so many more lines, but like it doesn't matter. Like I still love it and I'm glad it exists. And yeah, like I love that he made this movie.
Yeah, I agree with all the above. I think, like I kept saying, benefit of the doubt. I do think a filmmaker in certain movies, at a certain point, I think it's fair to say the movie's flawed, but let's work with it, see what we can get out of it. I think there's some stuff to be gotten out of this movie. I appreciate the experimentation. And it's a good point, Tony, that you brought up, which is that there's a lot of people experimenting with film these days. I love the fact that it's so much more accessible. Anybody can pick up a camera, but it is also rare to see it paired with a bunch of well-known actors, talented actors, paired with a big budget. Doesn't always work, but that's the whole point of an experiment. You try a bunch of different things, and that's cool to see. Okay, well, I think we can wrap it up there. Tony, the debut guest, the first one we've had on the podcast.
And the best. I don't think you need any other ones. Cancel all bookings. This is a one and done.
You are the megalon of guests. This is utopia, having Tony on your podcast. Well, thank you for joining. Tony, tell people where they can find more of your work.
You can find me at Hack the Movies anywhere. Hack the Movies across the board. We're on YouTube. We have the audio version of our podcast is on all the big audio platforms. We talk about movies new and old inside a video store. At the end of the month, we tend to do monthly wrap-ups where we talk about all new releases. Gil is on there frequently. Follow us and see all the cool stuff we got going on over there.
All right. Well, thank you again. And thank you, everybody, for listening. So, Tony, you can participate in our closing sign-off here. We like to say it simultaneously, but because we're remote, it never really works out properly.
Okay.
You can just try and keep up. So, thank you, everyone, for joining. That's not what we normally
Thanks
say.
for watching.
Okay.
And see you.
See you
on the next One Take.
One take. Why would you not tell me what it is before you say it?
I wanted to see if you could figure it out. You know, it's part of the fun. It was a test to see if you listen to this podcast. So we have an answer.